Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to tonight's council meeting. Information on how to watch, attend, and participate, as well as agendas, minutes, and recordings can be found on Broomfield's website at broomfield.org/council meetings. The public may also participate in public comment either in person or by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Screeners will ask callers for your first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. If you'd like to speak on more than one item on tonight's agenda, you'll need to press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total per item. The first 1 through 15 participants in the queue have 3 minutes to speak. The next 16 through 25 have 2 minutes, and if time remains, the next 26 plus participants have 1 minute to speak. For our hard of hearing residents present, we have wireless headsets available in the back of the council chambers through our AV team. The City Council regular meeting is called to order. No council members are absent. Council members Ward and Henkel are attending the meeting remotely, so a quorum of the council is present. Will everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And in order to keep order for tonight's meeting, I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. If council members are given an opportunity to speak for a second time, they should limit their comments to 2 minutes. We'll plan on a break at about 8 p.m. We'll begin with council's review and approval of this evening's agenda. Council may add or remove items from the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for the meeting. Does any member of the council have any comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Councilmember Anderson.
I would like to remove, I believe it's item 6C from the consent agenda.
All right, thank you very much. Item 6C will be reviewed as the first item under action items. Are there any objections to this agenda being approved as modified? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. There are no items under petitions and communications this evening. Does any member of the council have any reports or updates? Councilmember Marsh-Holshan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to let the community and council members know that I have been appointed to vice chair of the National League of Cities First Tier Suburbs Council. First Tier Suburbs Council is an organization within NLC that brings together elected officials from suburban communities to discuss ideas and policies that we all deal with collectively. So I'll be serving on that this year.
Congratulations. Thank you. Any other council member updates, reports? Well, I have one. I am serving as the chair for the Metro Mayor's Caucus for 2025, representing the city and county of Broomfield. And last night I attended a panel on housing, particularly on construction litigation reform. That's something that the Metro Mayor's Caucus is really going to champion this legislative session. It didn't make it through last time, but we really feel that this is that missing middle housing that hasn't been built in the last decade because of the litigious environment, because it's just become so risky for developers to build this product. It's created a huge gap. So that's what we'll be fighting for. And it was a very productive discussion because the development community was there, the elected officials were there, and we can all kind of get behind this because we all want this. So thank you for indulging me on that. We will now continue with public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to comment items that aren't on the agenda. So if it's something outside of the agenda topics, now is the time to be heard. Please state your name and neighborhood for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
I need to find
Hey guys, welcome to 2025. I'm Sandy Anderson. I live in the Broadlands. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city leadership staff. I hope you had a great break because 2025 Looks like it's going to be pretty interesting, and we've got a lot of things to do. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for all that you do, because it is well beyond what is understood, acknowledged, and you all deserve our respect and our support. Let me remind you and our Broomfield neighbors that you were voted in, that you won your elections, and that you are who we choose to represent us. You have our trust, you have our support, and you have our vote. Glad to see all you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janet Sund, and
Hi, I'm Ellen Lowe from Westlake Village.
so I'm reading what she had wanted to bring up. She has questions regarding the December 10th, 2024 City Council meeting. The 2025 community survey was discussed. Many recommendations by council were made and confirmed to not ask the survey questions, and confirm that the survey questions should not be asked. What is to come of those survey questions? Will they be asked in the future, or are they going to be ignored? Will all proposed projects be dismissed, or will the projects go ahead and the citizens don't have any right to ask any questions on them? That is a concern. There should be, all questions that came up should be asked. They should not be subverted. With all due respect, I suggest that all these questions be asked by council and be made aware of the options for our constituents. Regarding your topics for future discussions, members Hinkle and Cohen request future action regarding steps toward creating an immigrant inclusive environment in the city of Broomfield. We're concerned about it becoming a welcoming city. That is not something that we support. We as well as discussion of creating a civil rights ordinance. I don't know that any civil rights ordinance needs to be created. I think the people of Broomfield and of Colorado are respectful, and I don't think we need new laws to enforce what people already do. Most of them. I think very few people are not kind to other people. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, staff, council, mayor. I want to touch on one of the hottest subjects. It's like a hot potato, and it happens to be the trash, the mandatory trash hauling. And I want to touch on that this evening because I'm in an A1 zoning. I'm in Greater Wilcox area. I feel that staff, whoever was appointed to research this with the company or companies, didn't fully research it for that particular individual neighborhood, because the hot topic right now happens to be manure. And we have horses, we have cattle, there's sheep, there's goats out there, and nobody thought about that or to even consider that in the neighborhood. We have in the A5 or the Greater Wilcox, in that zoning, all of those animals are allowed. Not everyone composts or can compost, because some of the manure is a little stinkier than other manure and does need to be hauled away. You have forced the people that had it existing to now take the mandatory trash at the cost of that. And then the recycle company that was chosen, the company for the mandatory hauling, doesn't take that waste in their stuff. So the people are now paying above and beyond what the quoted price was going to be. Now, they were already having that service, but that service also picked up their trash. So now, because staff, council, whoever didn't look at this appropriately, you're costing your constituents extra money. I realize it's not a lot of homes, but you need to look at it and you need to look at the whole picture. You need to do tabletop exercises. You need to figure this out and do it the right way. And you need to put it up for a vote, not go behind the city's people behind that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bill Crothers from Northmore. Mayor Pro Tem, Council, City. I only have one question tonight. I called my trash company and it's going to cost $75 for them to take my trash can back. And I don't think I should have to pay that because I'm not the one that made the decision that they had to take their trash can back. So I think James mentioned it a couple times on Nextdoor. I just wondered if there was any progress towards what they're going to do about the people that have these, $75. I don't know what the other companies are. I've heard some of them, it isn't bad, $20, whatever, but Waste Management is $75. So I'd like to get some closure on that before we have to start the new one, which I think is in May. Okay,
That's fair, and there are discussions going on.
great, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. John E. Waltz, Pinnacle North. As is tradition for many this time of the year, I've been thinking back over 2024 as I look forward into 2025. In thinking about the votes that happened in this chamber in 2024, I would like to thank Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf and Mayor Castriota for taking the time and effort to fully explain your vote throughout the year. In the votes that stand out in my mind, Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf made a point to address the issue at hand, acknowledge when there were opposition or were positions in opposition to his position and address that opposition, and then provide a justification for his vote to his constituents and the public at large. Mayor Castriota has also done the same in the few opportunities where she needed to cast a tie-breaking vote. In the instances where I disagreed with their vote, I could at least understand the reasoning that led to their decision. Contrary to what one of my council representatives has told me, offering this justification and explanation will not keep us here until 4 a.m., as Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf has repeatedly demonstrated. And it provides tremendous benefit to your constituents. I believe that any member who takes their position seriously and respects their constituents would want to explain their vote to their constituents and especially to those that disagree. Therefore, I'm speaking today to ask council members and especially my Ward 5 representatives to please make the effort to explain your vote in 2025. Ideally, I would be asking that council members actually debate the issue at hand and logically address opposing positions raised by other council members and by the public. But I know that is asking too much of this council. So at a minimum, I would hope that you would begin by simply acknowledging that there are downsides and when present opposition to your position on any given vote. Simply ignoring the downsides does not make them go away. In fact, I believe ignoring the downsides of a stated position is ultimately a sign of weakness in that position and insincere motivations. Someone with strong convictions and a desire to do good seeks to challenge their position to test and confirm that they are actually making the right decision on a vote. We all have different backgrounds and thought processes that lead us to the decisions we make and what we find important. We cannot simply ignore the fact that others have different opinions or believe that everyone thinks like we do. As a sign of respect for your constituents, especially those that disagree with you on a given position, I ask that you please follow Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf's lead and explain your vote, and at a minimum, acknowledge and address the reality of the opposition raised by the public prior to casting your vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. Roxy Jula Lacamore. With everything that's happened in the last week in California, we are supposed to be getting new water tanks up on top of the hill. So let me explain a little bit. My home doesn't have the best water pressure. So if something happens, God forbid, a fire that's coming along from the west to the east, because that's our prevailing winds, and it gets down onto the northern end, and those pumps start, or the water starts getting used, that will leave me probably without water pressure. Because I'm clear at the south end, almost. I'm on 36. So in Lockamore, if you know where that is. So in the process, I would be asking the CCOB to the best of their ability. I don't want no excuses either. To the best of their ability to accelerate those water tanks on top of that hill. They may save an awful lot. And if they're not there, God help us if they're not, because we really need them. And I want to save everybody. CCOB is home and we need them. So if you can in any way, shape or form, I don't care if you have to put something on hold for a while. If we have to get those tanks in sooner, it would behoove the CCOB to get it done, or else I don't want to see what's going on in LA happen here, or California, or none of it, even our old fire that we had. My house, if we would have gotten past the toll road on the west side, our whole development, Hunter, Douglas, everything, and I hate to say it, possibly the whole south end of Broomfield could have been burned just like LA. So we need those water tanks that will help pressurize even our existing lines. And please, please try to get those tanks in.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard before we move on? General comments? I don't see any online, so now we'll continue with the report section of the agenda. City Manager Hoffman is attending a conference and is absent this evening. However, the Colorado legislative session is underway, and we have Ms. Danae Brouillard here to provide a quick update to council. Ms. Brouillard.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Danae Brouillard, Director of Strategic Initiatives and Governmental Affairs. Next slide, please. We're just going to do a very quick update this evening around the General Assembly. There will be 3 parts, just an update of what's been happening since it kicked off last week, a reminder of the process that we discussed and council gave direction on in October for the 2025 session. And then I'd like to introduce you to our contract lobbyists for the upcoming session and the work ahead. Next slide. All right, so the General Assembly convened last Wednesday. It feels like it's been a year and it's only been 6 days. They will end on May 7th. It's a 120-day session as outlined in the Constitution. As of today, 143 bills have already been introduced. I put on the screen some of the issues for 2025. I bet you're all looking at that and saying, wow, that list looks just like last year. It's the same list of items that we're seeing identify as priorities. However, the difference you'll see is that first bullet, which is that huge $670 million shortfall in the state budget. So to work through those land use and housing priorities, keeping the education funding that they finally secured last year, transportation, elections, all of those pieces will be very challenging. I will say they are getting creative with the budget. So we are really trying to pay attention to different ways that they are trying to find different dollars to fund these different priorities. Next slide. I did just want to mention the Joint Budget Committee, as this was part of our discussion in October. We are following the work. We've actually submitted a letter back in December with Public Health Director Jason Bailing and our Board of Health to try to secure some of our local public health funding that has been presented to be cut. Now they are in their supplemental. So right now they're looking at department requests for this current fiscal year. Then they're going to shift into the figure setting and come back. So that's when they look at the upcoming year and say, okay, here are the funding decisions we need to make for the next year and where the sources of money are going to come in a line item budget. And then in March or April, they bring that long bill, which is the budget, back to the General Assembly to review and make those decisions and finally approve it for the governor's signature. Next slide. The process for 2025 will look a little bit different than we did last year. Thank you to your direction back at the October study session. Next slide. First off, we all agreed to a shared definition about the impact to CCOB. As we talked about many times last year, there are a lot of really important bills, probably over 700 that get introduced. They're all important. So being disciplined and diligent about the impact to Broomfield and where we spend our staff time is important. We decided that the bills that directly impact us as an entity are the ones that staff will spend our time reviewing and then coming to council for a formal position if needed. A great example is the 23-213 land use bill. Mayor Castriata kind of hit on it before. We have struggles with affordability and housing. This was a big bill, but it took away land use decisions at the local level and impacted us as a local government. And you all took a position of oppose, which allowed us to be very powerful down at the Capitol in relations to that bill. In regards to all the other bills that are important, but maybe don't impact us as an entity, you still have the ability as a council member to take a position. So whether it's a support or an opposed position, that is completely permissible. It's just really important that when you speak on behalf of that bill or in opposition of that bill, that you state on the record that you're not speaking on behalf of a formal position of the city and county of Broomfield. One thing I would mention is that gets a little bit messy with the membership organizations when they do take a vote. That is considered a formal position for Broomfield. So on the votes, you wouldn't be able to take that position unless we have taken a position, but it doesn't preclude you from stating in advance of that vote as a council member, an individual position of why you support it or why they should oppose it, and having that sway verbally with your peers. Next slide. For staffing for council membership organizations, and you can see the list at the bottom. I won't read them all off tonight, but it was decided that staff will continue to receive the membership organization emails and will review them and attend them based on the agenda as needed. If there is a desire from a council member for staff support for, say, a specific meeting or specific request, that can be submitted to CMO crew. Next slide. For communication, we will hear from our contract lobbyist here in a moment, but we will continue to do timely written communication to council as needed. Legislative updates at council meeting, we're looking at doing those about once a month or again as needed to make sure that we're keeping you all updated. And then there will be bi-weekly emails from our contract lobbyist as well. Next slide. I just wanted to remind everybody this process is outlined in our council rules and procedures, chapter 9, section 3. To take a position, it does take a 2/3 majority vote of council and has to be done at a public meeting. If that vote is taken and we have a position of support or oppose, it directs staff to really activate all of our resources to work with our contract lobbyists, our membership organizations, and the media to further that position. And then at the end, you'll just see, I just put a general note that if there's a piece of legislation that we miss or that somebody really feels is really important and a position is needed, there is always the option for a council member to bring that forward following the rules and procedures and making the request by Wednesday at noon the week before the council meeting. So that still is in the rules and procedures. Next slide. All right. Now that we've gone through the process, I just want to take a moment and introduce you to our 2025 contract lobbyist, Jennifer Castle, and I'll pass the microphone to her.
Ms. Brouillard.
Thank you. Hello, it's good to be with you this evening. I look forward to working with you. My business partner, Ed Bowditch, was unable to come tonight, so I am filling in for him, but certainly we are thrilled and honored to be representing Broomfield. So thank you for the opportunity, and we certainly look forward to working with each and every one of you and on behalf of the city and county down at the Capitol. I am going into my 12th year lobbying down at the Capitol. I've been down there for about 15 years, worked as a legislative aide and campaign manager, and then worked for Governor Hickenlooper as well. Was one of his legislative liaisons for the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. In my time lobbying, I have always represented a local government or a local government entity. Ed and I currently have a large portfolio, of clients that include a lot of cities and counties. So we are always at the table when city and county issues are discussed, whether that's on transportation, housing, sales and property tax, open meetings, all kinds of various issues. So certainly we very much are pleased to engage with more local government. We've got about 22 or so new members of the legislature. Most of those members are in the House. This is certainly going to be an interesting year. One thing that I'm very excited about, though, is that a lot of those members coming into the Capitol have local government background. which is great. We have not seen that so much in the past. We have a deputy assessor, school board member, mayors, city council members. So we're certainly excited for that opportunity. As Danae mentioned, we expect more than 700 or so bills to be introduced. I'm not a math major, but there's 100 legislators and they each get to introduce 5 bills, but yet somehow that adds up to more than 700 bills that we see. So it'll be a busy session. As she mentioned, communication, we will be doing bi-weekly email reports. Of course, we are available for phone calls and texts at any time. As the session heats up, I imagine we'll see more phone calls and emails. But certainly I want you all to know that we are your resource down at the Capitol. If you come down to the Capitol to testify, which we would encourage, we are there for you to sit with you, to walk you through it, to introduce members of committees. We also want to be there to set meetings for you in our legislative delegation, governor's office, members of state departments, those kind of things. So certainly we want to be a resource. This is not a typical Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job. We are, especially during this session, we are down there every day that the session is meeting, that the legislators are going. So we want to be available to you all 24/7. So we do mean that. So please certainly take advantage of that. But again, we look forward to working with you, and we're hoping for a great session, right? Cross our fingers and knock on wood. And that will conclude our report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Castle and Ms. Brouillard. Do we do questions on reports? It's not okay. Well, thank you both. All right. Deputy City and County Managers Burton Zeddy or Casey or Attorney Rogers, do you have any reports for us? Thank you. Council's consideration of the consent items is next. Earlier this evening, Councilmember Anderson requested that item 6C be moved to action items. Therefore, it won't be reviewed at this time. 2 of the consent items are Board of Equalization items. As a reminder, council is the Board of Equalization. So a vote by council on these items is a vote for the BOE. The clerk will read all of the consent items by title, and there will be one opportunity for public comments and council questions and comments. Will the clerk please read agenda items 6A, 6B, and 6D through 6J by title?
6A, approval of minutes for the regular council meetings of December 3rd, 2024 and December 10th, 2024. 6B, proposed resolution number 2025-21, approving the second amendment to a consulting agreement with Icon Engineering, Inc. for construction administration services related to the Broomfield Heights Stormwater and Pedestrian Improvement Project. And proposed resolution number 2025-22, authorizing and approving the construction management agreement between the City and County of Broomfield and Triunity LLC for construction management, inspection, and material testing services related to the Broomfield Heights Stormwater and Pedestrian Improvement Project. 6D, proposed resolution number 2025-01, designating the public place for posting notices of public meetings as required by Colorado's open meetings law. 6E, proposed resolution number 2025-17, approving a revocable permit between the City and County of Broomfield and Matthew Alderman, 14560 Lowell Boulevard, for an existing fence and berm in the public right-of-way. 6F, proposed resolution number 2025-20, approving the reappointment of Charles Maines, MD, to the Mile High Regional Emergency Medical and Trauma Services Advisory Council, RETAC. 6G, proposed resolution number 2025-26-BOE, approving a mutual agreement on an abatement over $10,000. 6H, proposed resolution number 2025-19, approving an intergovernmental agreement for service from Colorado Legal Services for the Landlord-Tenant Legal Services Program. 6I, proposed resolution number 2025-33-BOE, approving hearing officer recommendations on abatement petitions. And 6J, request for executive session regarding the city and county manager and city and county attorneys' annual performance reviews and contract amendments.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with public comments on these items, starting with in person. If anyone would like to be heard on any of the consent items, now's the time. We have one person waiting to speak on 6C, but on the phone, but that person will speak when we get to that agenda item first, when we get to action. So does any member of council have any questions or comments on these items? Councilmember Lim.
I have questions on 6B, the Broomfield Heights Stormwater and Pedestrian Improvements. So I'll preface, I certainly support these improvements near Emerald Elementary. What council's being asked to approve is 1.2 million in construction management and administration services by 2 different consultants. The design firm that we've already used and already paid 1.1 million is now, we're now being asked to approve an additional 227,000 to address any design issues that may arise during construction. And we're asked to approve another consultant to manage daily inspections and materials testing for $1 million. So my questions are, have we used consultants for project oversight and administration services previously on projects? Is it customary to spend 7% of project cost on consultants to oversee the construction company that we've approved? Do we anticipate that staff will use similar consultants for future projects like this? And what happens if construction takes longer? Will the consultant administration and inspection costs be increased with these consultants we're approving?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Deputy City Managers. My name is Brian Graham. I'm the CIP Manager in our Community Development Department. You raised good questions. These are certainly high cost. These are directly related to the high cost of the construction and complexity of the project itself, being within a residential neighborhood in a commercial district as well and adjacent to Emerald Elementary. So let me just maybe speak a little bit more about the services that these 2 firms will provide. And then if you wouldn't mind repeating your questions, I'll try to answer those more directly. So Icon Engineering has been the design firm that has worked with us for the past 2+ years, working with the community to identify the preferred alternative in the design and going through all the design and permitting. The contract before you is for construction administration services. And so those services include those drawing and construction support. So they're very familiar with the design and engineering of the project. And questions do come up during construction that we will need to rely on them to answer in order to produce the best product in the field. They also will help us review requests for information and project submittals of different materials. That scope also includes the procurement of a handful of easements we need to secure for the construction, as well as permitting, additional assistance with public engagement, as well as built construction documents for our files and records for asset management going forward. The second contract for construction management is with Triunity Incorporated. Their services include providing a full-time project inspector, as well as a project manager to assist us coordinating the work with the contractor and overseeing that work. Their tasks include daily inspections, materials testing, which is required by our standards and specifications, including things like asphalt, concrete, the different materials that we're using on the project, as well as reviewing the contractor's documentation and pay applications. So one of your questions was, is this a typical approach for us? Generally, we are able to manage these projects on our own with our own construction inspection staff and public works, as well as our CIP project management team. However, this project, which you approved at the December 3rd meeting for construction, is a $14 million project. And again, it comes with a number of complexities being within the residential neighborhood. We're dealing with relocating water utilities, coordination with Excel, directly impacting a number of residents in front of their homes quite extensively through the installation of a very large box culvert and stormwater pipe, as well as new sidewalks on both sides of the street. And so these firms will help us manage that work and ensure, it's done and coordinated with the residents, and we get the product that we need. Because it's so large, we need that assistance. Generally on other large projects, we'll approach those with a CMGC approach, where the contractor is managing, that work and supporting our staff on those large projects. This is more similar to what we are required to do for CDOT funded projects or federally funded projects, where we do have a third party helping to manage the construction work. And we're taking a similar approach here because of the complexities and the size of the project. The 7% number that you mentioned, I haven't done the math, but actually I would say that typically for management of this nature would be in the 10 to 15% range. And I think that we actually have been able to negotiate a very fair and appropriate scope. While it does seem like a large amount of money, percentage-wise, it's under a more typical range. And I think your third question was about the length of project. And again, part of the cost and the reason why you're seeing such large numbers is because this is anticipated to be at least an 18-month construction project, starting next month and going through the summer of 2026. So at least 18 months. We do have weather days and some flexibility built in there, and the contractors' terms are based on the hours that they spend on the project. If we have slowdowns or delays, then they're not working and we're not being charged. So in theory, an extension of the project timeline would not necessarily result in additional cost.
You did a good job remembering most of my questions. The remaining question was, do you anticipate that staff would use consultants for future projects like this? Are there ones that we're looking in the scope of the near future that?
Well, we do have some federally funded grant projects coming up. It would be difficult for me to name specific projects, but where we do have federal funds or funds that are going through the local agency process with CDOT, we are using third-party construction managers. Currently on the 120th sidewalk infill project, we have a third-party construction manager on that project. So it's generally the funding type or the size or scale and complexity of the project that would dictate, whether we would use this approach to manage the project and ensure that the grant funds are reimbursable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just had a comment on 6H. This is regarding the Colorado Legal Services. Colorado Legal Services, since early days of my council service, has assisted Broomfield residents in reducing preventable evictions with high quality legal services and advocacy. I want to continue to spread this message that we have been doing a great job, as well as these surrounding communities that partner to contract with Colorado Legal Services as a way to reduce the amount of preventable evictions. As my council colleagues know, I serve on the CCAT, the commissioners and counties acting together. This is a lobbying organization. We found out that there is a bill that is working its way through the state legislature right now, 25020. This would grant counties, cities, and counties and municipalities the power to initiate and bring civil and criminal actions to enforce certain state landlord and tenant laws. So this is would be doing the work that we are currently contracting with Colorado Legal Services. I do have concerns that this would have negative impacts on this potential law, that they would have negative, there would be negative impacts of this potential law. And these negative impacts we felt by Broomfield as well as some other local governments that would now have to use general funds and taxpayer money to have that within their own attorney's office. So I do want to, champion the Colorado Legal Services and the work that they're doing, and ask my colleagues to continue to support this. So thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, before asking for a motion, I want to remind everyone that item 6H contains an intergovernmental agreement and item 6J is a request for an executive session, each of which require 2/3 approval of council. Is there a motion by council that consent items 6A, 6B, and 6D through 6J be approved? Councilmember Nguyen?
I make this motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Leslie?
I second motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen, and that passes unanimously. Earlier this evening, it was requested that item 6C be moved to action items. As mentioned, we'll review this item now before continuing with the agenda. Item 6C is council's consideration of resolution number 2025-09, adopting an updated expense policy for elected officials. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. City and County Attorney Nancy Rogers will be at the podium to go over this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Next slide. Council's expense policy, which addresses travel and training and money for community events, was initially passed in July of 2008. This policy establishes requirements related to mileage, meals, documentation, reports after travel, etc. The budget set at that time was $6,000 per council member, $10,000 for the mayor for travel and training. Community relations were set at $500 for council members, $1,000 for the mayor, for a total of $76,000. It was amended July 13th, 2010, updated to modify some of the restrictions related to travel, and also add information about reporting. There was no change to the overall budget. It remained at $76,000. In December of 2018, the expense policy was updated again. At this time, the separate allocations for community relations and travel and training were combined so that it would be $6,500 for council members, $11,000 for the mayor. No change to the overall amount. It still remained at $76,000. And there was a modification to the reporting requirement to allow for oral reports from elected officials when they got back from travel and training. On July 2nd, during my city and county attorney's report at a public meeting, I suggested that council modify this expense policy again to address a practice of transferring funds between allocations that the elected officials got to help pay for travel and training throughout the year that might not have been covered by that individual council member's allocation. Next slide. So the charter permits the mayor and council members to be paid their expenses incurred in the performance of their duties. Since 2008, the policies had recognized that residents benefit from having their elected representatives attend formal meetings, participate in forums, network, participate in community events, invite residents to sit down, have coffee, go to conferences. Travel and training is defined as events that assist the elected officials' professional development, and community relations is defined in the policy as participation by elected officials and their guests in community activities and events. Compliance with the policy is
determined by council. Staff does not have an enforcement mechanism for this, neither does the public. This isn't something that would result in any activity. This is a council policy. The budget is approved at $76,000, and then council decides through this policy how to utilize it. Next slide. So the background on the change before council tonight is that council has a practice to permit the transfer of funds from one member to another so long as the overall budget is not exceeded. And the overall amount has never been exceeded since we've been tracking this since 2008. Currently, council members seek permission from each other, usually one-on-one, and then let the staff know that this expense would be paid for by the allocation from another council member's account. It's, as council is aware through the quarterly reports that are presented at a public meeting, there are council members that use a lot of their allocations and council members that don't use any of their allocations. There is no set procedure in the policy right now for this practice. So, next slide. Resolution 2025-09 adds that no registration or expense could be incurred until it was confirmed that there's a sufficient amount, either through the person's allocation or through a transfer by another person. The reason for this is to reinforce what has been a longstanding policy statement in the expense policy that council does not exceed their budget. And again, council has not exceeded their budget since 2008. The process for transferring would be that both elected officials must agree and communicate that agreement to staff. No registration can happen before that agreement is confirmed. And if an elected official anticipates an expense that exceeds their allowance and there isn't a transfer to be had, they can bring it to council as a body and ask for those funds. Next slide. Thank you, Mayor. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rogers. We'll now proceed with public comment, starting with in person on this item. If you'd like to be heard, please make your way to the podium. State your name and neighborhood for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening again, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. John E. Waltz, Pinnacle North. There are so many issues I want to raise on how the travel and training budget is currently being used, but I will constrain my comments to the specifics around Resolution 2025-09. The resolution modifies one paragraph, 3.2E, and adds a new paragraph, 3.2F. Starting with the modified paragraph, the additions to 3.2E require that before any expense is incurred, that member makes sure that they have sufficient funds available for that expense. Are there council members so financially illiterate that they have to be told not to spend money they don't have? I guess that's a dumb question, as it appears we do, or at least members so entitled and selfish that they simply assume someone else will pay for their overspending. I have no real issue with the addition to paragraph 3.2E, but this resolution also strikes the last sentence of 3.2E, and that is unacceptable. 2 years ago, we were told that the expense policy allowed members to transfer travel and training budget allotted to them to another member. Based on the plain reading of the current policy, including the sentence to be struck from 3.2E, it appears that transfers were never allowed without council review and approval. When the practice of transferring funds was introduced and the public questioned it, the response from council was that the transfers were obviously allowed and we, the public, were stupid for asking. So if it was already obviously allowed, why strike the last sentence of 3.2E and add 3.2F? Now I feel stupid for trusting this council and not reading the policy myself. The expense plan annual allowance for each council member is currently $6,500, which is extremely generous and way more than I believe most would ever receive in the private sector for travel and training. This money is set aside for each of you to improve your ability to support Broomfield residents and to support Broomfield interests. It is not your money to spend as you see fit. There is no conceivable need for Councilmember James Marshallshan to spend $12,706, or Councilmember Austin Ward to spend $9,322, or Councilmember Heidi Hinkle to spend $7,745 on travel and training in 2024, especially when they have failed to demonstrate any specific intangible benefit to Broomfield. I would like to direct my last comment to the remainder of council. especially the members who have transferred money that wasn't theirs to give in the first place. You are enabling waste and abuse. Yes, the travel and training budget is small in relation to the overall Broomfield budget. However, it is the only money that you have direct, hands-on spending control over, and you are really messing it up. 3 members are repeatedly abusing the system with your help, and that reflects very poorly on all of you. Do the right thing and vote down this resolution tonight, which formalizes a policy of transferring funds between members, and return to the policy where spending transfers must be approved by council. This is the minimum that you can do to demonstrate that you are taking waste and abuse seriously and are willing to police the bad behavior of a minority of members of this council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counterpoint. Lois Vanderkoy, Broomfield Heights. Good evening. I read the Taxpayer Matters Call to Action, which opposes codifying a practice that council has used for years to support each other in their work. Namely, each council member is allocated $6,500 to spend on travel and conference training expenses regarding city governance. Because some members have more interest and time to go to these trainings and conferences, other council members give them some of their money. Money is also spent supporting local nonprofits. This is called generosity, cooperation, and support of the common good. No money is spent beyond what is budgeted as a whole. I'm not sure why the taxpayer group spreads misleading and evocative information. This council has been ethical, legal, and transparent, and yet this group doesn't trust them and combs through decisions to find flaws and make accusations. Is this group aligned with the MAGA movement, which is based on greed, corruption, and lies rather than our Constitution? It reminds me of Les Miserables, where Police Inspector Javert relentlessly pursues Jean Valjean, who was imprisoned for stealing bread out of necessity. As the story goes, Valjean was forgiven and given silver by a bishop. Due to that mercy, he went on to develop a factory that helped the poor. He even adopted a poor woman's child after she died. Isn't that somewhat similar to what good governments can do within their budgets? I've been reading historian Tim Snyder's On Freedom. Tim studies the history of Eastern Europe and Russia and worries about the rise of fascism and oligarchies around the world. He clarifies that freedoms such as free speech without facts, unlimited gun rights, freedom from taxation and regulation are negative freedoms. Positive freedom involves 1, respecting the sovereignty and human rights of nations and bodies. 2, allowing for nonconformity and unpredictability. 3, promoting education, health, and mobility so all have a chance to fulfill their basic needs and purpose. 4, factuality and honesty. And 5, solidarity or working as a group for the good of the whole. I find this council is generally aligned with positive freedom rather than greed and its power. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council, staff, Mayor Pro Tem, Luana Fletcher, Greater Wilcox, Ward 5. And I just want to state this evening that with all of the increases that have happened over the last year, the water especially going up 50%, so much happening, taxes going up so high. I think $6,500 is more than generous. There's so many online things that we can look at in addition to $6,500, but that's a lot of travel, a lot of training. And at this point in time, I would ask that it not be transferred from council member to council member, that the council members stay within that budget, and that anything that is above that hasn't been used be returned to the general water fund for the improvements of the sewers and stuff so that it can offset some of the stuff for people that can't afford things. So thank you very much this evening.
Thank you.
Hi, Janet Sund, Ward 5. Good evening, everybody. I am in agreement with her. If you work in the public sector, if you work in the private sector, you just don't get an allowance like that. You are told that you have to attend certain meetings, and beyond that, if you have to fly for them or your food and everything, that's taken care of, but you do not get an allocation of money to spend. And if you want to go to an additional conference or something, you have to ask permission from senior officials. This is wrong, that money can be used amongst yourselves for other issues that you want to pursue. You need to allocate your money appropriately. You need to spend Broomfield's money carefully. You do not need to be going to these events just because you think it's important to attend. It needs somebody with higher authority needs to sign off on this stuff. And this is ridiculous that people are swapping out money. That money needs to go back to the citizens of Broomfield. It needs to go back in our funds and not be wasted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roxy Jula Lockmore. So I've been around since this was conceived. And when it first happened, it was a good deal because it was for training and travel and learning and bringing back good ideas to the community and helping the community. And then it became like a vacation thing, or it became like, this is my pet peeve. So I want to go to this town and voice my CCOB opinion on it to this town and get everybody going on my little pet peeve thing. Once again, I don't like it if you're doing your vacation thing. You know, you don't need our money to do that. You're getting a little bit of money from us now. You can use that if you want. So just like our lawyer said, that the public has no say in this. So that makes you guys the fox in the hen house. You can do whatever you want to do. So since we don't have nothing to say about this money, although it's our tax money that's given to you to quote, quote, use wisely and for training and to make things better for our community by your use of it, then maybe we need to put something into one of the elections to vote on this, whether this should be taken out of your hands or not. Put it back into the voters on how much money, because there is no ceiling on this. Every year you can come up and you can raise these amounts. There's nothing in here. And only thing it says is it's whatever that can be budgeted. Well, the city is put into position by you, the city manager is. So she's not gonna say no to you because you put her into the position. So maybe the taxpayers need to take this item line budget out of just the fox's hands and put it back into the hen house.
Thank you.
Hi, Sandy Anderson, and I live in the Broadlands. Just a little bit about me. I've been in corporate America over 30 years, even though I'm now recently retired. My last position I held was a $5.2 billion sales organization that was worldwide. I will tell you, in my entire history of being in business, where we had thousands of employees and hundreds of $1 million of budget, There was never a time in the business where you were not able to share your budget amongst your group members as long as you kept within your budget. It appears to me that that's been the practice and the result since 2008, I think I just heard here. All these years, there's been a practice of sharing the budget, and never once has the council, no matter who's been on the council, has exceeded that budget. This is a normal and operational function of a business or a government body. I think that the opportunity to be able to document a practice is just fine. But the faux outrage here is ridiculous. We're making a problem where there's not a problem, and I so respect that all of you have stayed within your budget, knowing the things that each of you need and are prioritizing for a particular year within that budget, and share amongst yourself. Good job.
Thank you. We'll go to you, Mr. Carruthers, and then we have two people on the phone, and we'll get to you next.
Okay. Excuse me. First thing I'd like to bring up is it was mentioned in the presentation that these costs are incurred in performance of their duties. I know some of you up there are going to meetings that I have no idea how you can say that that is helping Broomfield. Okay, it's not. Okay, this is for a personal, somebody wanting to go to a personal training. Okay, so I guess my first thing would be, who decides that these conferences or whatever, how do you know that they're going to benefit the job of being a Broomfield city councilman, not a US senator, not a US representative, local to Broomfield? Okay, I see some of the ones that go on here have nothing to do with Broomfield. They're for RTD or something else. We don't even have RTD here, so I don't know why anybody's going to meetings for RTD. And I could go through the list and say, there's no reason for this. It's just to pad your own resume, to be on your own program, something that you want to do. Okay. So the second thing would be, I'm fine with if they want to transfer once to someone, say, pick on Lori, wants a little extra money from Bruce, that's fine. But that should be maybe one time during your 2-year or whatever session. Okay. So you don't just get to do this year after year after year, because there are some council members that don't spend their money every year. And I don't think other members should be able to borrow that money year after year after year. There should be a limit as to how many times that can happen. And to the last lady that spoke, I'd just like to bring up, she said, we're making a problem out of something that's not a problem. Well, the trash issue wasn't a problem either. And look what happened to us. Somebody made it a problem. So that doesn't fly. So anyway, keep your budget, do what you need to do, but $6,000 is enough every year for someone to go. Thank you.
So we're going to go to our callers who've been waiting. We'll get to you next. So Cindy, you've been waiting a while. It's your turn. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members, thank you for being here this evening. I have recently learned about the council members' $6,500 travel budget. I also learned there are times those individual budgets are exceeded and budgets can be shared. I just had a few thoughts to share. I believe $6,500 is a reasonable budget, more than reasonable budget. In the private industry, in my role, I've never traveled that much and spent that much in a single year. I think that affords somebody at least 2 decent out-of-state trips, 3 if properly managed. So I think going above and beyond that seems to be a bit excessive in a single calendar year. Exceeding the individual budget should be approved by council. just to kind of keep things in check, make sure that, you know, maybe somebody's not going a little crazy, and we're making sure that, as our council said, that they should be coming back and bringing value to the citizens of Broomfield when they travel and attend training. And it would also make it transparent to the citizens. I think that the more transparency, the better, for the citizens and for you. Then no one is accusing anybody of misusing funds or doing things improperly. And just because in the past these have been shared does not mean the practice can't be reevaluated. My teams I work with, when they say, well, we've always done it that way, that's not an answer to why we're going to continue doing it. So it may be worth evaluating. Is the practice of sharing, is $6,500 appropriate? What are we using that money for? And what are we doing to show our fellow council members and our citizens that when we spend this money, this is the value that it brings back to the taxpayers of Broomfield? I do want to thank Mayor and Council Member Cohen for responding to my emails earlier this week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Laura. You're on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Laura. I live in Ward 5. I want to thank the councilman for your time this evening. I also want to comment on the travel and budgets for these conferences that our city councilmen attend. I fully support that. As somebody who has both worked in the private sector and public sector, I fully understand how these trainings can definitely benefit both their colleagues and the city and county at large. So I fully support this budget and the sharing of budgets among the councilmen. A senior councilman might not need it as much as a freshman councilman, and I fully support the availability of that person being able to support their peers by being able to transfer that budget money. From what I understand, the council has kept within their budget, and I think that's very commendable. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. We'll return to our in-person comments.
I'm Jesse Applegate from Country Estates. Mayor, City Council, and staff, and people in the crowd. I've just done the math, and for approximately $58,500 a year for a city of 75,000 people thereabouts, we are paying 78 cents per person per year. Our city council does not receive really training to be on the city council. They're an elected position. It is not a career position. You have experience, but you have to get that experience yourself. I would note that most jobs require you to have some experience, require you to have some training, and most of that will take more time and more cost than what we are giving our city council, and they still do a wonderful job with it. I have no complaints about what we are currently spending on this, and I do think there should be probably more flexibility in how the city council is able to move money around to train itself and its peers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, well then now we're going to move on to council questions and comments. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion, and the time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions from council? No questions? Okay. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So apologies earlier for not asking my question when it was, or stating my comments when it was question time. So I'll make sure I stick to just my question at this point. But I do want to clarify, Broomfield is within the service area of RTD, and we do have RTD service in Broomfield. So I just wanted to clarify that before that is spread, that council members are attending RTD meetings when we don't have RTD, but we do. We are in the service area RTD, and we do have RTD service in Broomfield. So my question is, if we didn't change the policy, would there still be a pathway for necessary expenditures for travel and training of council?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, I mean, each council member and mayor would still get their annual allocation. And I guess from this discussion, we now know that transfers, which aren't addressed in the policy, are something that I'd like to get council direction on that, but it sounds like the intent is that everything over your allocated amount would come back to council.
Excellent. So without the changes in this policy, there would still be a opportunity for an individual's training and travel budget to be amended mid-year or before the end of the year. That would still be possible.
Yes, council could take any action it saw fit.
Okay, so we could still change that without any changes of the current policy.
Correct.
Okay, and this would have to be done at a public meeting?
Yes.
Great. Those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions from council? Well, I have a couple. Ms. Rogers, so you said since 2008, the total budget for council travel and training has remained unchanged.
Yes.
It is still the same amount from 2008.
Correct.
What was it prior to 2008?
I was not here at that time in my efforts to try to find documentation. There wasn't a set limit about what individual council members could spend. And in looking at old meeting minutes, it looked like that was an issue, that you had some council members spending a lot more than others, which is why there was a need for this policy.
Okay, so the reason the policy was enacted in 2008, because there was no policy and there was no transparency on any travel and training or limits or accountability or publishing of a quarterly report, correct?
I have not been able to find any from before 2008.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. That being said, next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2025-09. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2025-09, adopting an updated expense policy for elected officials.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Delgadillo.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Leslie.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Delgadillo.
I wanted to briefly provide some validation on something that was tossed around earlier. This idea that the private sector does not spend this amount on travel. In my day job, I travel probably every other month for at least a few days out of state where I need to fly, I need to book out a hotel, and I don't think it takes a genius to do some math to figure out that I certainly spend more than $6,000 a year on travel. Obviously, this is a different set of funds. However, I did want to provide some validation around that information that was thrown around. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So this informal policy was first known to me in a public meeting by a former council member just after I began on council. She stated the travel and training budgets could be shared if another council member was going to exceed their budget. I believe that the intent at that point was to transfer small amounts to cover the last needed funds for that necessary travel associated with that appointed board or commission. I believe that as we have the policy here today, that we still have the ability to transfer funds with council members. That just has to be done at a public meeting. So I look at this policy and I'm glad that we brought this policy forward to ensure that the community was clearly aware of how much travel and training is being done, what the process would be for transferring funds if that needed to happen, or if there was a council member that needed to exceed their individual budget, that was a possibility for council to have that hearing in a public meeting. So I look at this policy and I would say that I would encourage my council colleagues to vote no on this, keep the policy as is, and continue the process where if an individual needs to exceed their individual travel and training budget, that they bring that back to council and make that request at a public meeting, and that conversation happens at a public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Leslie.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to agree with my colleague. I was a chancellor of large urban community colleges for 35 years. In public institutions, I had 6,000 employees, $1 billion budget. Travel was an important part of how we became recognized as the best community college in the nation. So I'm fully supportive of it. But we serve as a board, and as our boards always acted to approve additional spending, not the basic budget, but additional spending when that spending was requested. I have been one of those who have not used my travel budget. I've been grieving for my dead wife for the last 15 months. And so travel for me has not been something that I have been interested in doing. And frankly, most of the experiences that I bring to the table, and like many who come from the public into these positions, has given me a great deal of insight into this kind of work, because I was always on the other side of the table dealing with the legislators and city officials, county officials, state officials, federal officials, et cetera. So I understand that process. But I think it's critically important that your representatives, the people you elected to serve in these positions, have the opportunity, it's not just for training. So much of this reimbursement is for the committees that we serve on. It's the tolls we have to pay to get to the meetings. It's the airfare we have to pay to get to the meetings that we're part of. We're each assigned to certain roles in our public duty. It's not just coming here every week. It's going to meetings all over the state, and sometimes federal meetings that do bring value back to the citizens of Broomfield. And for us to put it before the public to debate every time somebody wants to go to a meeting is ridiculous. What is important is for you to believe that the representatives here are trustworthy, that they're attending these meetings because that's part of their assignment, or that's part of their duties, or that's part of how they're helping Broomfield be represented by part-time people, when most of us are not full-time employees for the county or city that they work for or that they serve. We're part-time people. And so we do this in addition to the work. These are not vacations. This is not some time we're trying to get, as somebody suggested, some issue before some city somewhere that is only our interest. This is something we're doing for Broomfield. I've been one of those that have been more than happy to provide additional funds for my colleagues when they've needed those additional funds, because I'm not using them. But as long as we don't go over the overall budget, and that budget, by the way, hasn't changed in years. The cost of travel, like everything else, has gone up. So those budget dollars are less expansive than they used to be. So it makes sense for somebody to be able to say to me, Bruce, if you're not using those dollars, may I use some of them for something I'm trying to do on behalf of the government? We're a team here. And so it makes all the sense in the world for me to help my colleagues to be able to do something that I may not be able to or interested in, or it's not part of what I'm doing as a member of this council. So I do think this is something that should not be made such a big deal about. But I do agree that should there be some additional requests, that it come before council so that we can all know and be transparent about how those dollars are being expressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to Councilmember Leslie's last point, I did a quick online search. 2008, $6,500. That's $9,500 in today's money based on inflation. Everything costs a lot more now, and I think this is one of those areas. When I first got on council, there was a discussion about whether or not we should increase the budget because it was no longer sufficient to do the conferences we need to go to. And the discussion was at the time that we didn't want to we never come close to the total budget. So why do we don't need to expand the per council budget. We just have the ability to share. So that was the way that we didn't overall, we never get close to the $7,600, 76,000. And to the comments on the benefits to the community, I honestly fully believe that the 75 cents per person that this budget is more than made up from in the benefits we bring back from these conferences, both in tangible benefits and in just experience. And none of us are perfect. None of us know everything. It benefits the community for us to talk to our colleagues from around the country and other areas and get insight on how they do things. What do they do differently? That type of thing. And on tangible benefits, I serve in several leadership positions in the various organizations. I'm on the executive board for the Colorado Municipal League. I'm vice chair of the Finance Committee, Steering Committee for the National Association of Counties, which is another point that we are both a city and a county. So we have both. We have the NACO, we have the National League of Cities, which I just announced earlier that I'm now a vice chair on the Suburban Council. There's a lot of different organizations that we are part of. And I will point out too, that those conferences that we attend don't have remote options. The NACO, specifically the NACO, for me, the finance committees of NACO and NLC don't have remote options. There are 2 conferences per year per organizations that are out of state. Sometimes they're here. I think my first year on council, the NACO conference was here in Aurora. So they travel throughout the country. So, I mean, there is cost involved with that. You go there, and there's no conferences we don't go to. NACO has a Western regional group that's Western states. I don't feel there's benefit to Broomfield necessarily because that's more rural type of things. So I don't go to those. But I do think there is benefit. I'll give one example. For years, if you were a private employee, you were in the private sector, and you chose to, in the middle of your career, go to the public sector, become a public employee, you lost your Social Security benefits that you had already earned. You couldn't double dip according to the federal law. For years, and NACO and NLC finance committees have been advocating Congress to change that, to allow our employees to get the benefits that they earned in Social Security if they worked in the private sector before. Just last week, President Biden signed that legislation. That is something that NACO and NLC have been advocating for years. So that's a tangible benefit to our employees, our people that work for Broomfield, which then allows us to better recruit people. So I do believe there are potential benefits. I do believe there are intangible benefits, much more than the 75 cents per person that the budget is. And I do think that the policy should stay the same. And I support the change. I think it makes it more clarifying and more upfront. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try and be brief since we spent a lot of time on this already. I understand fully from the call to action that went out and the words tonight saying there was waste and abuse and profligate spending, and the words tonight that the council is illiterate and selfish and entitled and enabling waste and abuse, why people might get upset and come here and talk to us and think that we might be wrong. Fortunately, a lot of this is hyperbole, as you've heard, and misleading. So I hope you will go back and tell your neighbors that that what was said was misleading. And I'll try not to repeat, but I think there's some things that should be said. That one, this is a city and county. So as Councilmember Marsh Holston is, the meetings there, these council members are going to are organizations we are members of. There are organizations for county commissioners, there's organizations for cities, there's organizations for mayors, all of which, there's organizations that are national, there's the Colorado Municipal League, which helps represent us in the legislature as well. And you guys have, I think you want us to have a say in what these organizations are seeking to do in the legislature. This is standard practice, not just in Broomfield. You go to North Glen, $7,000 per council member. The policy is strictly states, specifically states you can reallocate funds to another council member if they need it. North Glen is half our size and just a city. Aurora, where I work, has a similar policy and has for years. So this is not some unique outlier that we're abusing. It's just a pretty common practice. As Councilmember Leslie says, as a team working together. Some of us can't travel. My work right now doesn't allow me, and my family demands don't allow me to travel, but I really appreciate it that some council members can take time away from their jobs and from their families to go to these meetings. And what has been said, when some people have said, well, there's no value, no benefit, it's a vacation. Every council member comes back and gives a report. I just read Councilmember Ward's today from his last trip. It was 2 pages, very detailed. So it was like I was almost there, and it's very helpful. I don't have to go to it. I still get an update on what some of the topics are coming up that other cities are dealing with. It's a very important note. Yes, it hasn't been changed since 2008. How many of us are dealing with the same budget from 2008? So there's been no effort to increase this so we can go on more trips. We have never exceeded the budget. So the call out suggested that we were exceeding the budget and having to take money from water and from parks and from recreation to fill the coffers again because we overspent. That's not the case. We have underspent the allocation in the budget, never gone over it. So there's no waste and abuse. This is standard practice. Someone needed a little bit more. I have given money to a couple council members from my account because I haven't been able to travel so that they can go represent Broomfield, bring back information. I think that last thing to state, transparency. This is completely transparent. There was no open records meeting filed to get the information of how much each council member spent. It's in the budget, it's public record. No one's hiding anything. So I hope you'll go back and tell your neighbors that a lot of this is making mountains out of molehills. I think every council member has behaved quite well and has attended the council conferences. Barack Buckthorpe reports have enriched the full council, enriched their service. Getting outside of Broomfield and finding out what other cities and counties are doing, what issues they're dealing, how they may have succeeded or how they may have failed is useful to us so we can hopefully do the right thing and not make similar mistakes. So I am quite comfortable with making this change to codify what has been a standard practice, and hopefully that'll reassure people that everything's on the up and up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. Believe it or not, $76,000 for 10 council members and 1 mayor is not that much in terms of a travel budget. And as a council member who is relatively new here, I can state that I've not been able to attend some of these conferences due to full-time job, grad school, you name it. But I do plan on eventually traveling and learning a lot from NACO and from other opportunities. And I feel like, as previous council members have mentioned, this budget hasn't increased at all. And this resolution actually will be more transparent in making it not transparent. For those reasons, I think I will be continue supporting this because, for one, being a city council member, being elected officials, you don't get training. You don't. You have to find opportunities, and you're not just born with the skills to be a city council member. And fortunately for us, we have council members who are willing and have the time, and we have a community that's willing to provide the resources for city council members to attend these training events. So I'm gonna vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councilmember Henkel, who had her hand up. So you're next, Councilmember Henkel.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to briefly address this idea that we are taking vacations, and I wanted to let you all know that I have calculated the hours that I put in. I do have more flexible hours than some other council members, like Councilmember Cohen, who does have a, at work office job out in a different city. He has to be there during certain hours. And I will say that during training that we had with city council, I want to say about 2 years ago, I missed a pretty big family event with my daughter when she needed me. And it's not that I regret the training. It's not that I, regret being away from family, but at the same time, there is a sacrifice that happens. And for hours and hours that we put in, it's about $10 an hour that we're putting in here on city council. So I just wanted to put that out there that we do miss family things. I'm not taking my family with me very often at all, or they could meet me somewhere on their own dime. But they're definitely not like traveling or flying with me, and it's not a family vacation. I'm missing family time, and I just want to reiterate that this is hard on people, especially mothers who have kids at home. I do want to mention that this hasn't been mentioned before, that a lot of times when you look at finance reports and you look at trends on finance reports, you reassess the needs of those finance reports. So just like in the past, when we say, hey, we need more money towards infrastructure, or I need more money towards other things. That's my husband blocking the dog from coming in. I apologize. We have to readdress certain needs. And if you guys start to notice, and I don't think anyone has mentioned this, the different positions that we have with CCI, for instance, at that conference, my vote is required there. So I also help lobby at the federal level and at the state level on behalf of Broomfield. It's an honor to do that. If people want corporate lobbyists to do that, you're really losing your voice if that's who you want to be there. So if you don't want us to be there to vote, you don't want your Broomfield residents to be represented, We're voted in these positions, and we're voted for these positions by our peers to serve each other. And then I would like to say that a lot of times we do say no, like to Councilmember Marsh Holston's point. I want to point out there are many things that we could go to, but we don't. We could use that extra benefit or the extra money in there. That's $26,000 that's left over. We have chosen not to. We are methodical on what conferences we choose. And to John Ewald's point, if you want me to communicate more as to why I'm attending a certain conference, I'd be more than happy to share that. Actually, I want to invite you personally to a lot of the things that I serve on, so you can see how I represent not only our ward, but our city and county. Because we have land use things that are very important at the state level. We have federal dollars that we fight for. If you're not at the table, you get the leftovers. And I don't want us in Broomfield to complain about things if we don't have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. I have a slightly different take on this. I'm somewhere in between the existing rule as written and the updated rule. And I did work with Ms. Rogers to put together a proposed amendment. Maybe it would be easiest if we share it now as I go through my comments. Or do I need to introduce it first?
Actually up to the mayor, but I think if you're going to talk about the amendment, you might as well introduce it now.
Okay, great. I would like to introduce an amendment that keeps this addition of the making sure that this transfer is agreed to before any registration is made, but making sure that this is actually done in a public process, which can be done, actually, we discussed this, it can be actually done during the report section. And then we agree to it as a consult as originally included in the in 3.2E and still maintained in 3.2F. So here's the language of the proposed amendment. How do I introduce it? I just need to.
So I would just say I move to make this amendment, and then Mayor can ask for a second.
Okay, I move to make this amendment.
All right, so Councilmember Anderson has made a motion for an amendment. If you guys can't see in the screen, I'm going to restate it. If the amendment is, if an elected official anticipates incurring an expense that exceeds their annual allowance, council can review the request and grant an exception to the annual allowance at a public meeting and permit a transfer from another elected official's annual allowance following council's approval of the transfer. So then the transfer would happen after a public vote. Did I get that? Is there a second? Councilmember Lim? Thank you.
Second.
I gotcha. As a reminder, our new council rules limit discussion on an amendment to 3 minutes for the sponsor and 1 minute for each speaker, and then ends with 1 minute for the sponsor. So Councilmember Anderson, would you like to give a presentation on your amendment?
Oh, sure. I kind of started that already, but okay. So this, now we can see the language here. This maintains that the part where the registration cannot be made until this agreement has been made. I actually am guilty of this one, of allowing funds to be transferred after the fact. And I want to make sure that from here on out, we keep that registration requirement up front and center. But at the same time, I want to make sure we're including this original intent, which was if an elected official anticipates an expense that exceeds the annual amount, the council can review the request and grant an exception to the annual allowance. I believe the language I was written where it's just email between 2 members is sufficient goes against that original intent. I think that is really it. And I really think this language cleans up the process. And
all right,
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf?
Thank you, Mayor. So I thank the council member for bringing forth this amendment to ensure that these transfers are done in public. However, this amendment isn't needed as the ability to increase an individual council member's travel and training budget exists in the current policy, and the change in that current policy means that change has to be done in public meetings. So the amended language that is being proposed just muddies the changed language that is being proposed tonight. So I'm going to be voting no on this amendment.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Lim.
I believe there was a purpose in putting the current policy in code. It was was the prerogative, as I understood it, of the attorney to put it into code. And therefore I support the amendment. I certainly trust my council members. I just wanted to state that they're using the expenses for the betterment of Broomfield. I have not exceeded my budget. I have filed complete travel reports, which are accessible to the public on the website. And I've read the council reports by other council members that have been filed, and I don't have any trouble figuring out what is the benefit to Broomfield. I would think the public would not either if they took the time to read those reports. So I have no problem with the current policy. However, for the sake of transparency to the public, I support this amendment. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? All right, so before we go to a vote on the amendment, Councilmember Anderson, would you like to make a closing comment? No, no obligation.
No, I think we've covered it. Thank you.
All right, so we're voting on the amendment that's up on the screen. Council, please cast your vote electronically. And Councilmember Ward, please cast your vote verbally.
Yes.
And Councilmember Henkel, please cast your vote verbally.
Yes.
All right, and that's a tie. And I vote no. I think the current proposed policy that Ms. Rogers drafted covers that. So now we'll move on to the vote. Did I do that? Oh, I have to actually, okay, there. All right, so seeing no further discussion, we'll move forward to the vote on resolution number 2025-09. Council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 8-2. All right. Thank you all very much for hanging in on that one. Now to business. The first item under action items this evening is the public hearing and council's consideration on second reading of a proposed ordinance related to approving a business incentive agreement with Peak Energy Technologies. I'll now declare the public hearing open. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum and I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. And new Director of Economic Vitality, Robert Smith.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here with you this evening. I'm delighted to be here in front of the council. Wish it was under a little bit better circumstances. Our normal presenter, Mr. Jeff Schreier, is a little under the weather here, so I'm jumping in. So you're getting the second string on this event this evening. But happy to be here and happy to meet and you, Mayor and members of council, for the very first time. I hope this will be the first of many presentations to council coming up there. Just a quick moment of introduction here. I was selected to be the Director of Economic Vitality and Development. And I want to publicly thank Deputies Casey and Baron Zetti and Manager Hoffman for entrusting me with this particular position. It's terrific. I grew up in the city of North Glen, so look to the west and the north, to the shining city on the hill, as it were. And so I had the opportunity to come here and jumped at that right away. I've been doing local government for a couple of decades now. And had opportunities to have tenures in cities like Thornton, Brighton, Lakewood most recently. So hopefully I'll be able to do justice to this presentation. Very excited about this. I'm finishing my 5th week this evening. So tomorrow starts my 6th week. And so I think I'm getting the hang of what's going on here in Broomfield. Very happy to be here. Before you this evening is an ordinance 2262. It's for a performance-based business incentive agreement with a company called Peak Energy. Tell you a little bit more about them in just a few moments here. I mentioned some other cities that I have been a part of. Many of them also suggest that these the title of these similar sorts of agreements should be something along the lines of a public benefit investment agreement, because when a public body decides to invest dollars into an incentive agreement. What we're really purchasing is public benefit from that company. And I'll talk a little bit about what that public benefit is that we'll be receiving in this agreement should you vote to approve it. It's a performance-based agreement. And what that means is the company has to perform first before we do any kind of rebate or reimbursement. They have to meet their criteria and what they have to deliver in terms of that public benefit. In this particular case, they need to bring jobs. They need to make investments in Broomfield. They need to pay their taxes and fees. And then at that point, we can talk about the rebate or the reimbursement that would be there. We can only rebate new monies we receive from these kinds of projects. So, and it's only a percentage at that. So there's no dollars coming out that aren't generated by this particular project. Broomfield is working with our colleagues at the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade. That's the State Office of Economic Development. This thing that you are discussing this evening would be a local match for that agreement. So it's similarly sized and paced to go with that particular agreement. For those not familiar, the Economic Development Commission for the state is who does that. That's 11 members that are appointed by the legislature and the governor's office to analyze these kinds of things. And so they've gone through this process of saying, this is a good project, this is a good company, it really makes some benefit for the state of Colorado and for the community of Broomfield. Peak Energy was considering a number of other states, Michigan, Kentucky, California, among them. I know for us in this room, you and I, it's a very easy decision. Colorado is the best place to be. Broomfield's the greatest community to come into. But for companies that are looking at a variety of places, they're weighing in the pros and the cons of that. And so we want to be competitive in that environment. That's why we are suggesting that this incentive agreement move forward. Peak Energy will invest in a space in Interlochen. That space will no longer be vacant. And they'll bring equipment, employees, and build out that local facility, all of which are public benefits that Broomfield will get to enjoy. Mr. Schreier put together this slide right here. I won't read all of the points verbatim, but I will touch on many of them. Peak Energy, what a great company. I had an opportunity to chat with these fine folks about what they're doing. They're working on sodium ion batteries. Many of you may be familiar with lithium ion batteries. Those are the batteries you find in your phone or in electric vehicles, those sorts of things. The lithium supply chain runs through a global world of, in order to get those supplies together. Sodium ion is a proven global technology, but there's not really a supply chain developed. All of those materials are here domestically. So Broomfield would be on the innovative cusp of making a battery technology work here with a domestic supply chain. So I thought that was a terrific thing. So a lot of the innovation that would be coming in that market and that supply chain would be coming right out of Broomfield, Colorado. Exciting stuff as far as I'm concerned. They announced recently that a $55 million Series A round that will help them propel not only this research and development office that will be here in Interlochen, but also a future manufacturing facility. They haven't cited that yet. That's not in this agreement, but you can believe that if they're here in Broomfield looking out to see if manufacturing is possible here in the city of Broomfield, city and county of Broomfield, we're going to be there in a great position to offer that up for them. And that would be a giga production facility that they're planning. So if you're familiar with the energy sector, basically, it's the energy that's generated from wind turbines and from solar needs to be captured and held someplace so that it can be distributed to companies and that sort of thing. So you need better batteries. So being involved with energy for many, many years, I know that the better battery is the thing that will make that work. So happy to have this company at least taking a look here in Broomfield. Broomfield location will employ 20 people. All of those would be have an average annual wage that's in excess of the county's average annual wage. Peak Energy estimates that annual average salary is $121,950, so almost $122,000 per year. They will invest a little over $1 million, $1.2 million into that Interlochen facility. They'll be taking down 13,000 square feet. There. They have a long-term lease already in place, codified. They're ready to go there. That'll take them out several years. The proposed agreement is to provide a maximum amount of $50,000 over 5 years. And again, it's a reimbursement of parts of that. I'll go over those specifics in just a moment. And this incentive agreement has been structured to align with the states, the OEIDIT incentive that's going forward there. So if council chooses to approve ordinance 2262, you can see some of the terms that are on there. It's a partial reimbursement of 50% of the company's payments made for permit fees relating to site improvements. So they have to go in, they have to get a permit, they have to pay for it, they have to do the work. And then we talk about doing that rebate of up to 50%. There's a partial rebate of up to 75% of the company's payment made for the general fund portion. That's 3.5% of Broomfield's use tax remitted by the company. And that's on materials to do the build out and supplies, those sorts of things are where use taxes come into play. And then there's a partial rebate, 66% of the business personal property taxes remitted by the company to the city and county of Broomfield. That would be for like equipment and those sorts of things, those personal properties, up to 66%, all the way up to that cap. Once they reach that cap, there's no more incentive to be paid out or no more reimbursement or rebate for that. And again, they have 5 years to pick that up. With that, that concludes the staff presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I also talked with the Peak Energy guys today, and we have a representative from Peak Energy, Mr. Edward McClone, is with us this evening as well. So happy to entertain any questions you may have at this point.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll now proceed with public comment, starting with in-person. If anyone would like to be heard on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. I don't see any online. Questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion, and the time to introduce amendments and state positions is later. Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Lim.
Yes, I don't know if it's proprietary information or not, but it's mentioned that the company has a lease for this 13,000 square feet for their research and development facility. So is it proprietary information to ask how long the lease is for? What do we see as their commitment to staying in Broomfield long-term?
I don't think it's really proprietary. That obviously is a business decision that they have there, but it's for multiple years. It'll take them through 2030.
Through 2030, okay. And then there's a note that this is their first phase. The company is also searching for sites to locate their full-scale production facility. So that full-scale production facility, I assume, would be much larger. And is it possible that, I mean, will they still keep their research and development facility in Broomfield when they choose another possible site outside of Broomfield for that production facility?
I can't really speak to that particular question. The general answer is they have a lease for this R&D facility here in Interlochen that takes them through that time. If they were to have another location somewhere else in here, not Broomfield, and we're going to really work hard to get them to commit to that. But if they had someplace else in there, I don't know what their plan would be. Do you want to, would that be all right with the mayor? If the company representative gives a response to Councilmember Lynn's question?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Edward McClone. I'm the Senior Director of Government Affairs at Peak Energy. Councilmember Lim, to your question, the Gigafactory that we are in the process of siting right now is, as you noted, significantly larger in footprint. The square footage we have in Broomfield is about 13,000 square feet with an option to double if we need to. We're looking at facilities in excess of 350,000 square feet for the Gigafactory. So that won't happen here, at least not at that site. We're open to sites that meet that. In terms of the commitment to the facility after we build the factory, yes, the factory is not going to be something that obviates the need for the facility that we're building. Part of Peak's business strategy includes a longer-term plan to develop the domestic supply chain, as Robert was mentioning earlier. That's the work that takes place at this facility in Broomfield and is part of a multi-year and without a specific end date nor a direct correlation to when the manufacturing process begins at the Gigafactory.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm glad to hear about that commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mayor. And first off, congratulations on the new role. We're happy to have you here in Broomfield.
Thank you. I'm honored.
And good job on the presentation. This question is to the to Mr. My apologies. To
McClone?
Mr. Edward, right? Yeah. So obviously you kind of answered my question, which was the incentive for further development in Broomfield by Peak Energy. We're excited to have this. Obviously, this is a huge boost to Broomfield's economy, to hopefully our vision of a renewable city and county. My question is, what does Peak Energy bring to, I guess, Broomfield? Obviously, ion batteries plus, jobs entering in the our local economy. I think it's 20 jobs. What else would you be bringing here?
Yeah, Councillor Van Wyn, thank you for the question. One, in part, as you noted, the number of jobs, the minimum average salary is, of course, as part of the presentation, which is in excess of, I believe, 20+% above the average area wage. So we are a pretty high-paying employer. The nature of the skill set that we require, these are primarily engineers who are based at the facility. In addition, Peak has a very strong benefits package that includes employer-paid healthcare, stock option benefits, unlimited PTO, and a fairly extensive parental leave policy. Beyond the specific benefits that we provide to our employees, the facility that we have in Broomfield is a place that draws our workforce from across the country. Our company is headquartered in Burlingame, California. I myself live on the East Coast. And so you're ending up with a fair amount of transient room tax receipts that are coming. We primarily have folks stay either at the Hyatt Place across Highway 36 or at the Omni around the corner as well. So you've got some pretty immediate and direct investment that's going into the community from the company as we travel to and from this site with our workforce. Additionally, one of the perks that we provide to our employees is complimentary lunch, which is sourced from nearby restaurants, a lot of them which happen to fall within the boundaries of the county of Broomfield. So as you would imagine, as any business that has a workforce in a single place and has a broad footprint, we have a lot of that. Additionally, because of the type of work that we're doing, developing a supply chain in the United States with a product that has not launched, that doesn't exist at scale in this market, we're creating a knowledge base for an industry that will be a multi-billion-dollar industry that's happening right here in Broomfield. Part of the reason why we are in Colorado specifically is because of the talent in the workforce. Part of that is what you get out of mines. Part of that is what you get from some of the other battery companies. By Peak developing proprietary technologies and advancing a supply chain here, we're creating a knowledge base in Broomfield that will be unique to Broomfield in the global market. We think that that will likely create long-term investments from other companies who are interested in developing technologies similar or benefiting from the skill sets that our workforce develops in the process that they do here.
No, excellent. I mean, Mr. McClone, this is fantastic. Obviously, I appreciate your words, and we hope that Peak Energy and Broomfield could be, beneficial partners in upcoming years now. Thank you. So that's all my questions, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's keep it to questions. Councilmember Marsh Holston.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, my question is for the Peak Energy representative. Sorry. I'll make you sit down. Just actually a question about your future development plans. We're really excited to have you come to Broomfield. The Giga facility that you're planning in the future, is that something that you're going to need to build a new facility at undeveloped land, or is that something that you could take existing light industrial or something other sort of type of existing facility and use? Or
Yes, Councillor. As a matter of fact, our site selection process, which is underway, is looking exclusively at brownfield facilities. We're looking to be able to repurpose an existing building, in part because we want to be able to get to market as fast as possible.
Great. Okay, thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2262. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
Ordinance number 2262, approving a business incentive agreement with Peak Energy Technologies, Inc.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on second and final reading and ordered it published by title? Councilmember Wynn.
I make this motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Leslie.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move forward to the vote on ordinance number 2262. Council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, under action items this evening is the public hearing and council's consideration on second reading of proposed ordinance related to the 2005 borough bonds and a proposed borough resolution authorizing the issuance of Authority Series 2025 refunding bonds and approving certain related agreements. These two items will be reviewed concurrently with one staff presentation. Before we proceed, we'll convene a meeting of the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority. The meeting of the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority is called to order. I'll now declare the public hearing open. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have economist Jeff Romine.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Happy New Year. And I'm happy to be before you tonight to talk about these two items. Also, I just want to say, I'm also happy that Robert got to make that last presentation. It's so refreshing to be an alumni of the Economic Vitality Department. And to watch how great he is doing already within his first 5 weeks. So the two items before you are 7B and 7C on the agenda were items B and C on the agenda. So next slide, please. City Council has one item to approve, which is the second reading of ordinance 2261, amending and restating certain agreements related to the borough bonds. This is the agreement between the city and county of Broomfield and borough in order to facilitate those bonds and to bring forward the funding for that. The borough, Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, their action tonight is going to be resolution 2025-35-UR, and this is authorizing those bonds and for the refunding. For those of you who don't live in the finance world, refunding means refinancing. So what we're going to do is we're going to effectively pay off the bonds and then reissue the debt under a new form, which would be the 2025 series bonds. If you'll note in your packet, there were 6 items related to this. With the approval of this resolution, you will be approving all 6 of those items to move forward. So it is a full package. Next slide, please. Background, once again, in 2005, the city and county of Broomfield and borough moved forward on the construction of what was then called the Broomfield Event Center. Borough then issued $29.8 million in bonds, which we have been paying on, borough has been paying on a regular basis. To make those payments, there is a URA, a urban renewal area in place, which is allowing for the property tax to be generated and be put into these accounts, as well as 10% of the sales tax pledged from CCOB. So those are the revenues that have been going in and making these payments. As you all know, and as we have definitely talked about over the last year plus, the event center was closed to the public in December 2023 at the direction of borough and the city and county of Broomfield City Council. So that's something that we did. And then, as many people have noted, that building has been coming down under demolition agreement and contract that we put forth in September 24, 2024. It is not year 204. Sorry about that. I guess there's always a typo somewhere in every one of these, so I apologize for that. Demolition is currently underway, and in talking with Ms. Allen, who's leading that demolition effort on our behalf, it is on schedule and moving forward. And is just as a reminder to everyone, it is a demolition contract which is resulting in about a 90% reuse of that material or recycling of that material. So it's a very positive effort on the demolition, and it'll return the property into what is very near a green field. So we're addressing any drainage issues, soil coverage, things like that as part of the demolition contract. Next slide, please. Modification of the 2005 borough bonds. This was the direction that we received in both the study sessions where we talked about, as well as the various actions. Just as a reminder, right now, we made the December 2024 payment. So our current outstanding debt on that bond is $28.1 million. The annual debt service over the next 6 years would be about $4.9 million. With the refunding of these bonds, we are going to be taking in a reserve account and advancing that, which was put in place to help pay that last year 2030 payment. We'll be able to utilize that money to help bring down the debt level. So we'll actually be looking, and we have about a $23 million value bond is which we'll be putting out there, and therefore the average amount that we'll be paying will be about 4.5. One of the directions received both from the Borough Board and City Council was not to extend the time period. So we are staying with the December 31st, 2030 payment period. So those are some of the conditions that were put in place. Refinancing is required on the original bonds due to a letter of credit that has been in place, helping to secure the bonds and secure the interest of the financing community in those bonds. That letter of credit will not be renewed as of March 1st, 2025. So this is something that we're moving through, and this is something we're required to do. So I just wanted to set that out there for you. Staff has engaged, the borough staff has engaged bond counsel, underwriting and financial advisory services, and that has been talked about and those agreements have gone through. We anticipate the close to occur in either February or March of 2025. So we are on a very tight time frame right now. You will note in those documents I referenced earlier that are also in your packet, some of those are in that final form or in the final draft form. There are some additions we'll have to make and some adjustments we'll have to make as we move toward the actual closing. So there is slight variation in them, that there'll be some edits, but effectively what you see is the final forms of the way that they'll look. There'll be just some details that we'll have to update as part of that offering. The refinancing converts the 2025 debt from a variable rate to a fixed rate. So that was one of the initiatives and directions that we got from the City Council and Borough. And so I'll talk about that briefly. It's to make sure that we move and we accelerate the debt, which I already mentioned, from the reserve funds and move that forward so we can pay off the debt earlier or at a lower level. And then finally, we wanted to increase the flexibility for eventual redevelopment of this site. So those are the initiatives that were talked about. Next slide, please. Again, proposal ordinance 2261 you passed in December as a city council. This talks about what it is. It authorizes the amended and restated cooperation agreement as well as the reimbursement agreement. Those were in place. And so this just makes that adjustment and recognizes the new instruments that we'll be putting in place. As mentioned before, where the city's moral obligation has been renewed in order to ensure that there is security underneath this, as well as other methods we're using to securitize the bonds. And any payments for that moral obligation must still come through the city's annual budget process. Next slide, please. Borough will be considering, as I mentioned, 2025-35-UR. These are all the various instruments that are part of that resolution, and those are the 6 that were in your council or in the borough packets for the borough board members. The borough bond series shall not exceed an aggregate principal amount of $31 million, shall not mature later than 12/31/2030. It will not be less than 95% of the original principal amount of the series 2025 bonds. And then finally, the interest rate will not exceed 7%. I say that because that's the umbrella that we're operating in as we move toward the bond financing. Next slide, please. What we anticipate from talking with our bond financing and bond counsel and our other consultants, so Seifel, Butler Snow, and RBC are the 3 consultant firms we have working with us on this. They estimate that the actual principal amount will be $23 million, as I mentioned, estimated to be at roughly 6%, perhaps a little bit low, but right now we're assuming about a 6% interest rate. And again, we're keeping the maturity should be 2030. I apologize for that one. I don't know why I didn't catch that earlier. So that's actually, the maturity will not be this year. It'll actually be in 2030. And again, achieves those goals. Finally, I would just note, because of the way we're reissuing this, we're anticipating some savings from the overall total payments that we'll be making of somewhere approximately $1 million and maybe more. And we'll be able to report that back to you once the bonds are issued. Next slide, please. Again, the team that has been working on it is Butler Snow from Bond Legal Counsel, RBC Capital Markets, our financial advisor, and Seifel Nichols and Company, who are doing the underwriting on this particular instrument. And then finally, of course, city staff and borough staff. Final steps. After we do this, we'll be finalizing the statements and other documents, as I mentioned, the bond marketing and offering and the bond issuance expected sometime in February to March. We're working as quickly as we possibly can. Obviously, as you can imagine, bond markets are adjusting right now and have been for the last several months. And so we want to move as rapidly as we possibly can. Next slide, please. So if council wishes to approve, there is the recommended action, and then for Borough, that is the recommended action. At this point, I, Graham, and Carl are all here to answer questions, as well as representatives from each of the three consulting partners that we have. Thank you very much, Mayor and council members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Romine. We'll now proceed with public comments, starting with in person. If anyone would like to be heard on this item, now's the time. I don't see anyone online, so questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves during this portion, or borough members. Any questions? Okay, since there being no further questions, the public hearing is closed. First is council's consideration, so council will vote on proposed ordinance number 2261. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
Ordinance number 2261, amending and restating certain documents related to the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority tax increment bonds, Broomfield Event Center project, Series 2005, and providing other determinations, covenants, and details in connection therewith.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on second and final reading and order it published by title? Councilmember Leslie?
I move the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Marshall?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll move forward to the vote on ordinance number 2261. Council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes unanimously. Next is borough's consideration of a resolution authorizing, approving, and directing the issuance of Authority Series 2025 refunding bonds and approving certain related agreements. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2025-35-UR, authorizing, approving, and directing the issuance of Authority Series 2025 refunding bonds and approving certain agreements related thereto.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Marshall?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Leslie?
Second.
Borough member, sorry. Is there any discussion? Okay, so borough members, please cast your vote electronically. Authority member Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Authority member Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
And Authority member Goldstein, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All borough members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen. And that passes unanimously as well. So thank you all very much. We got this over the finish line. And now the next item under action items that we've all been waiting for is council's consideration of two resolutions to approve new sister cities relationships. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. And I believe it is Suzanne Linder, Library Manager.
Good evening. Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city managers. We are thrilled to have representatives of our two new sister cities groups here to present tonight. We have had a 20-year relationship with Ueda, Japan, and these two new sister cities have been brought to us by interested community members who will tell you more about these proposed relationships. So I believe that the Lalitpur, Nepal goes first.
Thank you, Ms. Linder.
Mayor, council, and staff, thank you for allowing us this time, and long time coming, but we're excited to be able to move forward. Over the last 18 months, the Sister City organization reorganized as a nonprofit here in Colorado. And so we're a standalone organization. And with that, we started working to recruit new members and expand our committee. We do have some committee members here. Helene Jewett is here, and Martin Dormish is here, and Andrea Minash is here. And then also Trina Cooper is here. And then I'm representing the Nepal Lalitpur City presentation, and my committee that is here, Narayan Thrista is here, Trina Cooper, and Clark Greek, former council member, is with us also. Though we've been working on this for quite some time, it's a little complicated because it's so far away, but we're very excited to give you some information tonight about this relationship, and we're really looking forward to the opportunity of moving forward. Next slide, please. So why have sister cities? Sister city relationships promote peace through a great mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation between the cities by creating diverse cultural opportunities, educational events, and enrichment opportunities for both local citizens in both Lalitpur, Nepal, and Broomfield, Colorado. Next slide. We have quite a few Nepalese citizens, and many of them joined us tonight. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to be with us. There are a lot of Nepalese businesses in our community and surrounding the area. We actually have about 20 businesses owned by Nepalese people in the Broomfield area. And Narayan, who many of you may or may not know, has been very active in the business community throughout the region and has really done a great job in promoting common goals here in Broomfield as well. And we've been very excited to have the opportunity to work with Narayan and his team. His nonprofit organization is amazing. Hopefully we get another chance to present that to you as well. Next slide. Kathmandu is a sister city to Boulder, Colorado. Broomfield would be a natural sister city with Lalitpur, which is directly across the river from Kathmandu. So when I was in Kathmandu, I actually didn't know that Lalitpur wasn't part of Kathmandu, but we spent most of our time in Lalitpur. The art and the unbelievable cultural artifacts that are there were fascinating. The general region would participate in the relationship with Broomfield. Superior also has a sister city relationship with Nepal, and Longmont and Westminster have Nepalese cultural activities. So this relationship can lead to a greater connection and collaboration with Broomfield's neighbor cities as well. Next slide. I think he's bringing up a video.
Yeah, the next slide is a video.
Yeah. We wanted you to see a little bit of what the main part of the Lalitpur area looks like.
Is one of the oldest town of Kathmandu Valley, believed to founded nearly 2000 years ago, and is located adjacent to Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. The current population of Lalitpur is around 300,000, spread around 36 square kilometers. The city is governed by an elected council led by the mayor for a tenure of 5 years. The literal meaning of Lalitpur is City of Fine Arts, which is proven by existence of arts and crafts in abundance at every nook and corner of the city. It is also proven by the fact that Lalitpur has recently been enlisted as 35th Craft City by the World Craft Council. The most important monument site of the city is Patan Darbar Square, which has been listed by UNESCO as one of the 7 protected monument zones that make up the Kathmandu Valley World Heritage Site. In addition, many heritage settlements of high social and cultural importance are spread around Lalitpur.
Perfect. We can go on with video for a while and hopefully we get to share more with you in the future. But we wanted to show just a brief portion of the cultural opportunities. Can you go back to my PowerPoint? That would be great. When my wife and I were there, we were a little shocked about how much artwork and the amazing talent of the people there. So this was in the video, this particular spot. And believe it or not, that's me sitting with these two gentlemen. I had a little bit of a beard and they thought that was pretty cool that an American would have a beard. And so they put a red dot on me and pulled me over there and took a picture with me. But I found the people to be incredibly friendly and gracious and really welcoming, which was fantastic. Next slide. We also had the opportunity to do base camp. So we were on the trail for 34 days. And this is an incredible opportunity for people in our region to have an opportunity to travel over to Nepal and visit base camp. Their guides there are amazing. I think Narayan and all the folks from the local community could probably help with that as well. But we wanted to bring that forward. And next slide, finally. So base camp was at about 18,000 feet. And of course, Mount Everest is only at 29,000 feet. So staggering to say the least. So next slide. So we're asking Broomfield City Council to approve the sister city cultural relationship with Lalitpur, Nepal. And Narayan and myself are open to receive questions if you have some. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cooper and Mr. Shrestha and Ms. Cooper and all of you, Mr. Greep, for your work on this. And thank you for showing up tonight. I know this has been in the works for about a year. So public comment is actually next. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on that. If anybody wants to speak on this item, now's the time. Let me see, nobody online. So questions, comments from council? Anyone on council? Okay. Are we going to go right to the next presentation from our other sisters?
prepared.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Come on up, Mr. Dormish.
Good evening, everyone. Martin Dormish, Ward 1 in the Birch neighborhood. And my fellow presenter, Andrea, and I are part of an amazing group of local advocates in the midst of establishing a new Broomfield Sister Cities partnership with the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes headquartered in Concho, Oklahoma. Once you all hopefully recognize our effort and once we complete a joint recognition ceremony with our partners, ours will become just the second ever Sister Cities relationship between a U.S. community and a sovereign Native nation. This effort is important for many reasons, including our wider history. During and just after the Pikes Peak Gold Rush, the Arapaho and the Cheyenne people were forcibly displaced from this area, which they called home for generations. And now, 2 centuries later, we are working toward conciliation and trying to find a better way forward together. Perhaps the thing I love most about our effort is how it began. During Indigenous Peoples Day festivities in 2019, I found myself wandering the cafeteria at Boulder High School, looking for a place to sit and eat my lunch. And I happened to spot an open seat next to an older man and his wife and several rambunctious children. And when I asked if I could sit with them, he said, "Yes, of course, please join us." They turned out to be Arapaho elders Fred and Mary Mesquita and their grandkids, very energetic grandkids. And Fred just so happened to work in the Language and Culture Department of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, and he still does. And most importantly, since our shared meal, he and Mary have become dear friends. I'm so grateful for the opportunity our group of Broomfield area advocates have had over the last 5+ years to get to know the Mesquitas and other members of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. We've come a long way from 2019 to now, and our group looks forward to all that will come of this partnership in the generations to come. I'll turn the presentation over now to my partner, Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. I wanted to share the land acknowledgement that we realized that, and thank you so much, Mayor, for last November and having Broomfield recognize that, but so that we have a little bit of a different land acknowledgement than what we have adopted in Broomfield. Should I read it? Okay. Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
So we say this at the beginning of all of our meetings and have formed this along with our partners of Cheyenne and Arapaho. We respectfully acknowledge all Native peoples who have lived on and cared for this land since time immemorial. And we especially acknowledge and pay respect to the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations upon whose treaty recognized homelands we are meeting this evening. And while we recognize that a simple statement isn't sufficient to support the rights and well-being of Indigenous peoples, we use this land acknowledgement as a reminder to educate ourselves and others on our past and present history and on the past and present history of Native communities in what is now called Colorado and beyond. Next slide. I just wanted to give a couple of examples of the things that we have done in the last year and a half and more, but I think it's more recent, like the year and a half. We asked Fred Mosqueda, who Marty talked about, what his suggestion would be for naming of a new open space. This isn't official or anything, but Open Space has sent out, a vote for and community comment. So we just were really excited that we got to have him come and look at our land and offer a potential name for it. Next slide. We worked with Open Space and the Open Space Foundation to restore some native vegetation in the area. So we did a planting in May. And if anyone, so those were some of the plants that we chose that were asked specifically by Cheyenne and Arapaho to plant. So if you go out to the commons, it's in the field somewhere. But I haven't checked on them in a while, so I'm not sure how they look, but so we did that. Next slide, please. Just continuing our friendship forming and education with them. Several Broomfield community members specifically are a part of our group who are not Cheyenne and Arapaho, but are urban natives who have partnered with us, and they have an exhibit. Huh? Oh, just kidding. One of them is Cheyenne and Arapaho. Raylene Whiteshield. We just wanted to say that we support their current exhibit at the Golden History Museum. They worked really hard to put that all together, and it's really beautiful if you ever want to go see it. In June, we supported a cultural youth language camp up in Allens Park and offered financial support and gifts, and some of our youth from the Teen Youth Council, Broomfield Teen Youth Council went, and it was just the most beautiful connection of youth. It was beautiful. And they got to be back in their homeland, so it was wonderful. What else did we do? Oh, yes, we had basketball friendlies.
which is coming up in 2 months, March Madness type stuff with their youth and our youth, and it was wonderful. Oh, and yes, yeah, I mentioned that before, that we named it Native American Month. So thank you. That's what we've done. Maybe there's another slide. Oh, so that was at our basketball. It was really fun. Next slide. That was at our camp. We supported, how do you say, with the polls? What did we do? We helped them with those poles, and those poles are giant, and there were a lot of them, and it turned out beautiful. Next slide.
That's the last slide.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Yes. Does that conclude your presentations? All right. So I guess that would be, now it's public comment. So anyone want to comment on this item? Now's the time to be heard. Come on up. Just state your name and neighborhood for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Be that long.
Okay.
Hi, new resident Charles Lebro over in Brandywine.
Mhm.
So having been in other areas, I've been in Oregon when I was at the Warm Springs Reservation, where I met the president of the Confederated Tribes. Typically, it would be, I would expect that if this resolution came through, would you have I would ask the representatives, would you have one of the, either the president or one of their council coming here to more formally accept?
I'll let our presenter answer that. Thank you.
So yes, sir, if this is passed, then as we move forward, we would definitely want to plan a joint recognition ceremony between our two communities, and that would include their highest elected official, which is their governor of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait. Thank you. So now we'll go to questions from council. Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I can easily say this is the best part of the meeting. I did want to, I think I noted, I think they came last spring. We had students who'd gone to Ueda, Japan on a exchange trip, and then there'll some students from Japan will be coming here. So maybe Mr. Cooper's here. I was curious, sort of asked earlier, what thoughts you have or plans for exchanges that might come about from this sister city relationship.
Join me also. Yeah, we've discussed this, and we were looking at the potential of exchanges from Broomfield to Nepal and then Nepal to Broomfield. I'll let Narayan address that also. I think one of the greatest opportunities is to bring cultural events to Broomfield from Nepal. And, you know, Broomfield is an international community already, but this really helps bring that flavor together.
Welcome, Mr. Shrestha.
Yeah, thank you very much giving me this opportunity with your question, of course. I'm very, very much pleased today that this is my dream. Dream was that to make many, many sister cities throughout the Colorado with Nepal cities, that this is the third one. I hope you all approve today. And fourth one is going with the Brighton. And another one is Parker and Aurora, Longmont, Louisville also in a process right now. So the answer to your question is that when I brought the governor of Colorado to Nepal, same city, Lalitpur, that's what he liked, he wanted to visit. And the mayor of the town also toured him around, and we met in a hotel with the mayor, and he requested to the governor directly, would you please help me to have a partner city in your state? And governor turned around to me, and Narayan is the best one to do that. Don't ask me. Then I approached to actually Larry and the wonderful lady there, Trina, at their home, sipping wine. they asked me, where are you from? Nepal. And she, oh, my favorite country. And then I grabbed them immediately with my plan. This is Broomfield. They live in Broomfield. Let's make a sister city with Nepal. And they jumped right away with my proposal. And then we started talking with the man like Larry Cooper, who makes anything happen, anything possible. So I got a best team in our crowd. And then we have businesses here around with the Nepali owners. And in Boulder, Colorado, also I started there almost 48 years ago. And I live in Superior. Superior became sister city with my birthplace in Cadbury. The answer to that is culturally exchange program is team of Superior also I brought to Nepal, Boulder also I brought to Nepal, and a delegation coming from there to here. Not only the, just a cultural exchange, but also trade and tourism, and also our artifacts, what we have in Broomfield, we bring over there. What they have in Nepal and Lalitpur, you saw so many artifacts. Now the goal is that enriching our culture, each other, by sharing and caring and loving, and to keep peace in the world by making friendship city to city, people to people. No quarrel, no fight, friendship and love. And that's how we're gonna enjoy. And educational tour also gonna happen. We brought many students from Nepal to here and here to there, back and forth. Many, many years we have been doing it. So we want that kind of a exchange program as well. So we will make our world a little better place to have a friendship in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
That's
very much.
Well said.
Appreciate
right.
it.
We
answer your Yes, you did.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it. The community looks gorgeous. Look forward to visiting it someday. I'm not going to go up 8,000 feet. though. Air's a little thin. But I did also have one question for Martin on the other sister city. I believe Longmont's the first, right? Longmont, I think, established a couple of years ago a sister city relation, and they were the first. But do you know what kind of exchanges or kind of programs have developed there that we might emulate?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Longmont is the first ever partnership between a U.S. community and a sovereign native nation, and theirs is with the Northern Arapaho tribe in Wyoming. And yeah, we've met with them on several occasions and have shared the wealth and learned about how they do things and their suggestions for a recognition ceremony. So I definitely hope that, if this moves forward, that you all, or as many of you as possible, are able to participate in that process. I think that could be a really great community building time. And yeah, I think I would echo what was shared by our Lalitpur partner, that we want this partnership to extend into many areas of connection, including economic and cultural and language and education and cultural exchange partnerships. And I would just mention that we have a representative here from the Youth Teen Council here in Broomfield who is planning to go with a group of young people from Broomfield this April to visit and have an exchange in Oklahoma. And there will be several city staff that will accompany them as chaperones. And we're all really excited for that trip and to hear how that goes. So that's one example, but we have ideas for many others.
Terrific.
Thank you
so much. And
Thank you.
Real quickly, I hope we do name the open space. I know Kristen Pritz is in the back. The water rolls back, and maybe, Kristen, you can locate a park that can have a Nepalese theme.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Henkel?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for being here. I can't always see you all, and I apologize I couldn't make it tonight due to a medical emergency in our family. It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve on the Sister Cities Board for over a year. And to attend all these activities is to really just learn more about yourself and your surroundings. If we are honest with ourselves and talking about people who are immigrants, we all are coming from an immigrant lineage, unless you are from a Native American tribe. So just to really think and hone in on, who is visiting here and who's not, and who's them, there is no them. There's only us. And the more that we work together and the more that we learn about each other, the better. And I enjoy these cultural exchanges. And I'll give you an example too. When you go to an Afghan family's house, and I will say Afghanistan is on our temporary protected status list. So is Nepal. So is Ukraine. So we have a lot of places that are on our TPS list. And what I've noticed is in some, war-torn areas, particularly in the Afghan area in Afghanistan, they invite people over to their homes. And I said, what is it about the Afghan culture inviting people to your homes? And you always have food ready. You always have chai. There's something always going on in your home, and you can't get out of a home, within, an hour. You're just there for a long time talking. And it's just something that American culture could learn from. And they said, and this really hit home to me, that they said, when you invite people into your home, they don't become your enemy because they know you and your family. And so it's a way for people to make peace and a way for people to make amends. And same with after Ramadan, they apologize to people who they have wronged. And it's just a good way to make peace. So I love these cultural exchanges, and I'm really excited about these two opportunities. And I did want to ask a question about membership. I know I serve on the board, but if someone could speak there about how people in the audience or who you're listening and want to be involved, want to be a member of the Sister City organization here in Broomfield, if someone could speak to that.
Junko Goodwin's here, and I'm going to allow her to do it.
Absolutely. Ms. Goodwin, would you like to generate awareness? Hello.
Hello, I'm a chair for the Broomfield Sister City organizations. And to become the member, first of all, please go to our homepage. We have an extended explanation and a history of our 20-some years of communication and the relationship with Ueda Japan. And so first, maybe you can go to the homepage and read a little bit about it. And then we are open for the questions. We have a email address there. Also, we have where you can click and become a member.
And what is the website address?
Okay, BroomfieldSisterCities.org.
Perfect. Just the
Great,
way.
thank you.
Yes, exactly how it is.
Okay.
Thank you. And I wanted to give a nod out to all of the board members who have really brought this from the ground up and have really partnered with our community and our city and county and are really building these programs. I know how long it took to come here and to get to this point, especially Larry Cooper. I know you've been ultimately very patient. So I wanted to give our board and Junko and Helene and our entire board just some major kudos. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions from
Oh,
council?
and then one more thing. We do have all member meeting coming up end of this month, January 28th in the library. So anyone can join that meeting and hear about our past and then future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Any other feedback from council, questions? Well, then we'll move on to the vote. First is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2025-23. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2025-23, recognizing the establishment of a sister city relationship between the city and county of Broomfield, Colorado and Lalitpur Metropolitan City, Pulchok, Lalitpur, Bagmati Province, Nepal.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Leslie?
I move the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Nguyen?
Happy to second this.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally. Yes. And Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes unanimously. Congratulations. All right, moving on to part two. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2025-24. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2025-24, recognizing the establishment of a sister city relationship between the city and county of Broomfield, Colorado, and the Sovereign Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
So moved.
All right, is there a second? Councilmember Leslie?
I second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Then council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. And that passes unanimously too. All right, y'all. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute recess. We're a little past our 8 o'clock break. Sorry, y'all. So we'll be back at 8:50. Thank you. So that means that our presenters will not be able to present their slides, but in the interest of efficiency, since these are available to the public online, they're going to talk us through it and we're going to resume the meeting. So I say, let's start broadcasting. If you're ready, I'm ready. Okay. Thank you and welcome back. We're on item 70. Next under action items is council's consideration of a resolution authorizing chemical purchases for the water recovery facility, water treatment facility, and the utilities division. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would like Director Ken Rudd, our Public Works Director, to present the next item.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. It's our pleasure to be here before you tonight and to continue our conversations of the wonderful world of water. And tonight, I'm going to introduce you to Deputy Director Jeff Ruger. He oversees the utility operations for Public Works. Jeff has been on that side of the world and experience for 34 years. And in addition, he spent 6 years as a seasonal for Broomfield during his high school and college.
He paid
So
his dues.
he's 40 years with the city and county of Broomfield.
I know. It's amazing. Let's clap for Jeff. That's really amazing.
He's also the two-time green chili champion. So
Even better.
All right, I actually have the slide presentation in front of me. So Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Ken, thank you for letting me present. And then in the back corner, I don't want these guys to sneak out. We have the utility superintendent, the water treatment plant superintendent, Scott Thornton, Dennis Rodriguez, the water recovery, wastewater, and Shonda Soul in the utilities. So they're the ones that are going to need this chemical purchase. In the slideshow presentation, we had the water cycle. So as a raw water form comes into Great Western Reservoir and it moves through the water treatment process, chemicals need to be added for treatment and that type of thing. And we'll get deeper into the presentation as we go. And then as the water treatment goes into the distribution system, we have a chlorine residual that's monitored throughout the system to make the drinking water safe. And as the residents utilize the water, it goes disposed through the collection system. So it's making its way through the collection system and we add chemicals for odor control and that type of thing. And then it lands at the water recovery facility and they need to treat that end product to remove biosolids and liquids so that they can put that water back into the environment for the next user. So chemicals are a vital part of what we do. We are operationally, we are regulated and by CDPHE and the feds. But the bullet point we had is key points, importance of water, wastewater treatment. In 2022 globally, at least 1.7 billion people use drinking water source contaminated with feces, and that's from the World Health Organization. So the good part about the United States is it's heavily regulated and we follow those mandates and to meet those safe drinking water. But the water cycle, the public health, we want to ensure safe drinking water. Environmental protection is another aspect that we look at, resource management, making sure the product we put back at the end is usable, and compliance with regulations essential to the standards we follow. And then, of course, the odor control. Of all the chemicals, the water treatment plant has 5 that they use for coagulation, flocculation, sedimentation, filtration, and disinfectant. Aluminum sulfates and polymer C308P are the ones that are used to kind of clump together the raw water as it comes in and kind of pull out the solids, that type of thing to settle out. And then the next process is corrosion control, where soda ash is introduced into the water treatment, and we use soda ash dense. If you do get that, we're on slide 2, but I'm gonna fast pace all this. But the pH is regulated in the system with a 8.5 to 9.1. Some of the higher end bottled waters that you might buy will have a higher range in the pH. So Broomfield has a good high standard of pH in their system. And then the other product that they purchase is powder activated carbon. That is, all of us have senses. We smell and taste. Of course, we see, but with water, the carbon helps eliminate some of those taste and odor issues that residents may taste in the system due to algae blooms in the reservoir, that type of thing. So the carbon helps with that. And then, of course, sodium hypochlorite and liquid ammonium sulfate are mixed together as a disinfection product so that we can maintain a chloramine, which is a chloramine, the minimum is a 0.2 in the distribution system. We will not go below that, and that's per our CDPHE standard. And we don't want to have a max overage of 4.0. If you do, we would get complaints like our water smells like a swimming pool. So we regulate those quite regularly. And then sodium sorry for the pronunciation, but I'm going to call it fluoride. We purchased fluoride and put it in, and both CDPHE and the water plant goals to maintain a 0.7 milligrams per liter that goes out into the system, and that's to help with dental and protect teeth and that type of thing. Now we moved out of the water treatment. We're moving into the water recovery treatment plant, and there's 5 stages of wastewater treatment, which is the preliminary treatment, physical removal process, screening, primary treatment, primary clarifiers, grit chambers, secondary treatment, aeration, anaerobic basins, and then tertiary, which is your ultraviolet light and sodium hypochlorite that is used on the reuse system. And then we get to the solids treatment, which is digesting and dewatering. In the process, the chemicals purchased in that, you use phosphorus removal, which is a regulatory mandate that we need to pull out of the system, and ferric chloride is used. And that same chemical is also used on that side of the treatment for odor control, because you get the H2S buildup, and those gases can release, they smell like the rotten eggs. And with the facility being, the water recovery facility being so close to residential areas, we want to make sure that we take care of those odors so that we protect the residents living nearby. Total inorganic nitrogen reduction permit requirement, moving all nitrate from wastewater involves 2 steps. First, nitrification, converting ammonia to nitrate, followed by the denitrification, converting nitrate to nitrogen gas. Microorganisms in the wastewater treatment plant use carbon as a primary energy source to break down organic matter. During the biological treatment stage, carbon in wastewater refers to organic compounds present in wastewater. Sources include food waste, human waste, detergents, and some industrial discharges. Approximately 4 to 6 grams of carbon per gram of nitrate is needed to ensure effective nitrate removal. And operational factors that influence the required carbon dosage include wastewater quality, how much carbon in the wastewater coming into the plant, microorganisms, population, and treatment process design. Micro C and glycerin, a sugar alcohol, are the next stage of chemicals that are used due to the low organic carbon concentrations in the incoming wastewater and requiring a supplemental organic carbon source. The water recovery facility utilizes a non-hazardous glycerin-based carbon source, trade name Micro C 2000 series product. This is all utilized because the studies show that it's safe, cost-effective, and flexible. And Micro C is certified USDA biopreferred digestion. And then we get to the solids treatment, polymer C6295, a critical treatment process to achieve regulatory and permit compliance in wastewater treatment facilities is the removal of solids. Once the solids are removed from the wastewater, they are treated by a anaerobic digester. The byproduct of this treatment process is methane gas and the stabilized solids. The stabilizer solids typically contain around 95 to 97% water. Using polymer, the centrifugal technology, stable solids or dewater produce a cake which is composted and used as a soil conditioner at Broomfield's Will Canley biosolids. Then last part of the wastewater treatment, which is not a chemical, they have UV disinfection. So that's not a chemical that's part of this chemical purchase, but they do use the sodium hypochlorite that is put into the reuse system as it goes through that distribution system to the tanks. It makes it safe and doesn't break down. Least but not last, we get to the utility operations in the collection system. So once people utilize, just a quick informational. So if you flush your toilet, Broomfield has 12 lift stations located throughout Broomfield because of the rolling hills. So collection goes to a low point, to a lift station, it collects, and then it is pumped up to the top of the hill so it can go gravity to the wastewater plant. During that time frame, we have detention time and duration, which makes that sewer kind of break down and create the H2S gases. So we use a product at those facilities called Bioxide Plus 71, and that reoxygenates the sewage so that it eliminates the odors as it moves through the system. Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, all chemicals utilized in the treatment of wastewater and wastewater must be approved by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. Adding new chemicals without authorization can be a violation of the Colorado Water Quality Act and the Clean Water Act. Colorado Multiple Assembly of Procurement Officials, Chapter 320 of the Broomfield Municipal Code allows the purchase of items through cooperative procurement with other organizations. Broomfield's participation in Colorado Multiple Assembly of Procurement Officials, MAPO. MAPO members have access to an online repository of available contracts and solicitations to use when procuring goods and services for their agencies. These competitively bid or negotiated agreements often provide sustainability lower prices that might be obtained by individual agencies. Specifically to water, wastewater chemicals, multiple municipalities and special districts work together to secure and obtain the best possible price for disinfection, chemicals, and polymer coagulant aid. By participating in this organization, Broomfield can take advantage of volume-based pricing. So Ken and I are available to answer questions as it relates to the chemical purchase. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruger. And thank you too. We'll proceed with public comments on this item. So if anyone would like to be heard.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, John Ewald. I appreciate all the information. And thank you, Mr. Ruger, for what we could see of the slides. I'm the kind of person who thinks that a field trip to the wastewater treatment plant would be a great day. So I'm interested in it, but I have some questions about the budget and process. So is this purchase funded out of enterprise funds? And could some of the funding sources that are listed in the memo be explained? And are these funding sources already part of the approved 2025 budget? And on a more basic level, why is this resolution before council if this is normal operating, if this is a purchase to support normal budget or normal operations? It seems like this should just be part of normal operations. I don't understand why it has to come before council as a separate vote. Thank you.
No, those are great questions too. And I'll let our presenters answer that. I know one of them. If the amount exceeds the city and county manager's budget authority, which I believe is 250,000, it has to come before council for a vote. So I know that one, but tell us about the others.
Yes, all the funds for these are all incorporated in the enterprise funds. In the memo, and you probably would have saw in the presentation had it been up, is that the 40 accounts indicates water, the water fund. 45 is the sewer fund. And so all of the funding for all these chemicals are included in either the water fund under 40 or the sewer fund under 45.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there anyone
Mayor?
else who has any comments or questions on this item?
Mayor,
don't-
can I add another piece? 'Cause,
Absolutely, Ms. Rogers. Did I
this-
misspeak?
No, you were absolutely correct that the dollar amounts have to come to council. And usually we would tie it with a vendor. But Public Works needs the agility to work with any vendor that's approved by MAPO. So this is really the expenditure approval for the type of chemicals we need, not knowing the exact vendor. But so long as they're a MAPO approved vendor, then we can do the purchase order in line with this resolution that hopefully council will approve. So it's
Thank you for
it's a
that.
novel way to doing it without bringing 14 contracts your way and then having to change them because that vendor doesn't do it anymore, but we have another vendor on deck.
Good to know. Thank you for the clarification. Good. All right, so now we'll go to questions from council. Does anyone have any questions on this item? Excellent. Oh, sorry, Councilmember Lim.
The use of ferric chloride in the reduction of the hydrogen sulfide. Is that currently regulated in any way, or is that a prerogative of Broomfield to use that to counter odors?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Lim. The it's two-part question is there is an odor threshold that is established in Colorado state law. And then the ferric chloride part, which is the Water Quality Control Division, has to approve the use of that chemical in the use of the treatment facility. So ferric chloride is one of the most common used chemicals because it can attach to the sulfur molecule in the H2S and therefore reduce that hydrogen sulfide smell.
So if there's a current rulemaking before CDPHE about reduction or monitoring of H2S. So I guess the concern would be further regulation might increase costs.
Yes, because then what you're bringing up is a great point, is the Colorado Air Quality Control Commission is looking at 5 priority toxin air pollutants, one of which is hydrogen sulfide, which is related to wastewater operations, along with some oil and gas operations. The other 4 are more specific towards oil and gas. But yes, there's potential for increased costs associated with that rulemaking. We're waiting to see how that rulemaking goes through. I think the commission is finalizing the 5 pollutants this week, and then the rulemaking will happen sometime in the future, near future.
Okay, thank you.
But that is one of the chemicals that possibly would be used throughout the system.
Any other council member questions? I just have a quick one, because I've been hearing about fluoride in the news. And I was wondering if, somebody at the federal level wanted to take away the fluoride, would it preclude a local government from continuing, a water provider, to use fluoride in the drinking water to, stop tooth decay?
Fluoride, that is one of the controversial
I know.
ones that, and currently the CDC and the Colorado Department of Public Health both recommend the usage of fluoride in drinking water. It is not mandatory, but Denver Water also uses fluoride. And since we get 40% of our water from Denver Water, and to ensure that we are consistent, we also add the fluoride.
To the northern water?
Yep.
Okay, but is there anything that would preclude us from continuing if, say, the CDC went away and changed its rules?
As long as based on our water usage, as long as Denver Water continues to use it, it's in the best interest that we continue to use it. If Denver Water was to stop using it, we'd have to evaluate it because then we would have to increase our cost
Okay,
to offset that.
okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Rutt.
And Mayor, on that preemption question, as it
Yes.
stands right now, the federal law that if the feds change their law, it doesn't impact the local ability to add fluoride or remove fluoride. That's the current state of the federal law. So it would have to be changed by the US reps in the Senate. So we would be able to monitor that. It wouldn't be just a regulatory change.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2025-06. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2025-06, authorizing 2025 chemical purchases for the water recovery facility, water treatment facility, and utilities division.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Degudillo.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Nguyen.
I second this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, council, please cast your vote electronically. And Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if Councilmember Henkel's back. She had to take a break. She's not-
Yes,
There you
I'm
are.
back. Yeah, sorry, I had to attend to some medical needs.
I
of my-
know.
Thank you.
Good. You voted yes?
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes unanimously. Thank you, team. Keep up the great work. And I want to give you a shout out to streets because, and the water main repair that happened today so efficiently. It was done within the 12 hours. And so there was minimal disruption. And at 5 o'clock when I was coming here, they were all cleaned up and ready to go. So great job. Thank you all. All right, the next item under action items is the public hearing and council's consideration on second reading of a proposed ordinance related to the local ambulance licensing program. I'll now declare the public hearing open. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Technical difficulties again. Thank you, Mayor. And I believe Deb Fetterspiel, the Deputy Director of Public Health, is going to be presenting this.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Deb Fettersfield, Deputy Public Health Director. This item was initially brought to Council by Director Valling at the December 3rd Council meeting, and we're returning tonight for second reading. So a little bit of background on this item, very briefly. From 2001 to the present, Broomfield has been operating a local licensing program for ambulance licensing, or excuse me, ambulance services in our county, and the program is administered by our department, Public Health and Environment. Additionally, Broomfield's been participating in a multi-county licensing and inspection program in partnership with the counties listed on this screen for both secure transport, inspection and licensing, and ambulance inspection and licensing. So the reason for bringing forward this ordinance 2260 is that in 2022, there was legislation that established a requirement for any ambulance or any providers wishing, excuse me, any ambulance service providers wishing to operate public health and environment. And that program went into effect July 1st of 2024. Under the legislation, cities and counties were given the option to continue to require a local authorization and licensing program if they wish. Broomfield and the counties that are currently participating in our multi-county licensing and inspection, IGA, have opted not to pursue this option to retain the local licensing program. So as such, staff is recommending that we repeal the program as it currently exists in our municipal code. So during the December 3rd council meeting, where the ordinance passed on first reading, council also approved the amendment of the multi-county IGA to remove ambulance service from that program, retain secure transport, So the second piece tonight is then if council desires to pass ordinance 2260 to eliminate the local ambulance licensing program from the municipal code. So with that, that concludes my summary, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fetterspiel. We'll now proceed with public comments. If anyone would like to be heard on this item, now's the time, and I don't see anyone online. Questions from council are next. Any questions from council? Short and sweet. Next is council's, I have to close it. There being no further questions, the public hearing is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance 2260. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
Ordinance number 2260, repealing Broomfield Municipal Code, Chapter 5-40, Ambulance Services.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on second and final reading and order it published by title? Councilmember Marshall.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Degladieu.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? We had to do this at the State Board of Health last year. Same thing. So it's good to get it finally done. That's all I have to say. Council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen once my no vote goes in. And that passes unanimously. Thank you both. Thanks for staying late or whatever you had to do. Appreciate y'all. And next under action items this evening is council's consideration of 4 resolutions related to the Department of Human Services 2025 grant funding. Before we have the staff presentation, Councilmember Henkel wanted to make a statement. Councilmember Henkel.
Thank you. I didn't know I was making my statement now, but I can. I wanted to just let everyone know that I do have connections to the Broomfield Community Foundation and that I will be recusing my vote today on this. However, I will say that I don't have a financial connection. So while I don't need to recuse myself, I will, for any perceived connection, I am a total volunteer within this realm, and we are not up for any of these grants underneath the Broomfield Resettlement Task Force. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor, and our new Director of Human Services, Lisana Munoz.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Is this your first presentation to us?
It is, and it's really more of an introduction, but thank you for having me.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening on the 2025 City and County of Broomfield Department of Human Services and Broomfield Community Foundation grant funding. Our focus this evening is to share insights into the purpose, funding, and the process behind this year's grant cycle to support community-based organizations that are truly addressing critical human services needs. And with that, I'd like to hand the mic over to Mandy Walk, who has really been leading our efforts in this area to walk you through the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Mandy Walk. I'm the Human Services Management Analyst with the Department of Human Services, here to go over our nonprofit grant awards with you. You can see in your council member memo, there's agencies descriptions and proposed services. Those are detailed in your memo if you have questions specifically about the agencies. First, I'd like to address the purpose of this funding. Since its inception in 2009 from the City Council policy on community outlays for public purposes, this initiative has been guided by one purpose: to ensure that vital services such as behavioral health, intellectual and developmental disabilities, support, housing, and basic needs reach our residents. These services fill essential gaps that government agencies alone cannot address, fostering resilience and well-being across the community. This funding is derived from the county mill levy originally established in 2001 and updated in 2012, which allocates 1.0 of the 2.25 mill levy to support human services, including the aforementioned services for IDD services, mental health, and other community needs. The amount, as you can see in your memo, for 2025 is approximately $1.8 million. And of note, the Broomfield Community Foundation contributes about $100,000 to this grant process. This year, we saw unprecedented engagement with 57 organizations applying for funding, an increase from 52 last year. These applications requested nearly $3 million, reflecting a 13% year-over-year growth. While demand continues to rise, we were able to fund 64% of qualified requests, ensuring targeted support to organizations that align with the City and County of Broomfield and Department of Human Services strategic priorities and community needs. Of note also, our grant funding is used strategically. Tier 1 grants fund capacity building for new or smaller community-based organizations within the nonprofit ecosystem. The larger Tier 2 and 3 grants fund critical community needs, including those high impact areas previously mentioned, that being behavioral health services, IDD services, housing, and basic needs. In addition, multi-year funding in Tier 3 ensures we meet these critical long-term community needs. I also want to speak specifically to our partnership with the Broomfield Community Foundation. Our partnership with BCF started in 2023 and was codified in August of last year by a policy updated and approved then by City Council. And it continues to enhance the efficiency and breadth of this funding process. BCF serves as the philanthropic arm of the community, bringing extensive experience, relationships, and infrastructure to the table. This partnership is also highly cost effective. If the City and County of Broomfield were to replicate this process independently, it would require significant staff resources, leading to higher administrative costs. By collaborating with BCF, we avoid duplicating efforts, saving time and money. For nonprofits, this partnership simplifies the application and reporting processes, allowing them to focus more on their core missions rather than administrative burdens. For us, it means tapping into BCF's already established systems and subject matter expertise, ensuring equitable and strategic funding decisions. By leveraging their strengths, we create a streamlined and impactful process that benefits nonprofits, our department, and ultimately the community. In addition, BCF helps expand the reach and depth of our impact. Their ability to host initiatives like the Broomfield Community Services Network provides vital infrastructure and capacity building resources that empower local nonprofits to serve residents effectively. In short, this partnership allows us to maximize community investment, ensuring efficiency, transparency, and alignment with strategic priorities. Next slide, please. And you'll see before you are these 4 resolutions for the 4 agreements and amendments that require council approval because of their dollar amount. A brief process overview before I hand it over to Dion to walk through Tier 1. These resolutions reflect funding awards requiring City Council approval. Our process is grounded in consistency, equity, and community impact, which I'll briefly outline. The first being our application and scoring process. All these applications undergo an impartial review by diverse scoring panels, including community members, Department of Human Services representatives, BCF staff, and board members. The process is competitive, ensuring awards are based on its scoring and alignment with strategic priorities and community needs. As well, we ensure the engagement and feedback of the nonprofit community. Applicants have opportunities to meet with us to discuss their applications and identify areas for improvement. This collaborative approach strengthens nonprofits and builds capacity for future cycles. Of note, in terms of accountability, before contracting, we verify nonprofits or their fiscal sponsors standing as a 501c3 entity with the IRS. Post-award, grant reporting ensures transparency and effective use of funds in alignment with the grant proposal. You can see, as you've experienced in previous years, our continuous process improvement for this. We include nonprofit agency feedback in our grant applications and continue to refine our processes annually. This structured yet adaptable model ensures that funds are distributed equitably and strategically, maximizing their impact across the community. Now I'd like to welcome Dion West, the Executive Director of the Broomfield Community Foundation, who'll share more with us on the Tier 1 awards and processes.
Thank you so much. Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about the Broomfield Community Foundation's role in this grant-making process and the recommendations we are presenting for you this evening. For over 30 years, the foundation has proudly served Broomfield, guided by our mission to improve the quality of life for all residents in Broomfield and to support the nonprofits in serving our community. Our grant-making and capacity-building initiatives play a critical role in ensuring the nonprofits can meet the ever-evolving needs of our residents. Our Tier 1 grants are highlighted here tonight, focus on funding requests that are $50,000 or less. These grants are designed to be accessible with a streamlined application process and reduced reporting requirements. This approach allows us to better support smaller or emerging nonprofits that may not have the resources to navigate more complex funding requirements. Many of these smaller grants are strategically directed to organizations that are new to our ecosystem, bringing innovative solutions or targeting underserved populations. By providing this targeted support, we ensure that all corners of our community are reached, fostering inclusivity and equity. Our tiered funding approach enables us to meet diverse needs and strengthen our local nonprofit network. By supporting both innovative newcomers as well as experienced service providers, these grants maximize the effectiveness of public funds, enhancing the well-being of Broomfield residents. In addition, our grantees benefit from more than just funding. Through the Broomfield Community Service Network, we provide access to workshops, training, and collaborative opportunities throughout the year. These resources help build organizational capacity, ensure accountability, and encourage collaboration among nonprofits, multiplying the positive impact on our community. The needs of our community continue to grow, and this year we received a record number of applications, highlighting the increased demand for support. This makes securing funding more critical than ever. With your support, we can further our shared goals and create a thriving, inclusive community. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. One more? Okay.
Thank you. Next slide, please. These are the Tier 2 and Tier 3 grant funding amounts. I won't go into them in detail. That information is in your memo if you have questions about those specifically. But I did want to highlight a couple of key updates. So if you go to the next slide, then the next slide. Thank you. Just wanted to highlight some key updates from the 2024-25 process that reflect our commitment to strategic investment and community impact, as well as the changing nonprofit landscape. As you saw in the Tier 3 slide, in October, Mental Health Partners merged with Clinica Family Health, and they're now operating as Clinica Family Health and Wellness, ensuring integrated, streamlined services. Additionally, there was another merger. State legislation prompted a redesign of case management, leading to the creation of ANI Avenues, a merger of Adult Care Management, Inc. and Imagine. And this redesign created a new model for IDD services, for which ANI Avenues now serves as Broomfield's case management agency instead of the former model for which Imagine served as Broomfield's Community Center Board. Imagine will continue to serve our community as a program-approved service agency. Next slide. Thanks. Our partnership with BCF continues to evolve. For 2025, as you have heard, BCF will administer Tier 1 and Tier 2 funding. In addition, the new Human Services Nonprofit Grant Pilot approved in August by City Council also introduces multi-year funding for up to 4 Tier 3 organizations and BCF's Broomfield Community Services Network, providing stable long-term investment in critical services. These updates exemplify our focus on adaptability, equity, and sustained community impact. Last slide, please. Thanks. In closing, this program illustrates how government and nonprofits can collaborate to create a stronger, more resilient community. By combining our resources, expertise, and shared commitment, we can address growing needs effectively and sustainably. Thank you for your continued support of these vital services to Broomfield residents. I welcome your questions and will ensure any follow-up inquiries are addressed promptly. Thanks.
Thank you to the team. We'll now proceed with public comments, starting with in person. If anyone would like to comment on these items, please make your way to the podium.
Roxy Jula Luckmore. I only have one question, and you probably can't answer it tonight. These funds are fine. I have a question about fish. I would like to know what our estimated cost is that the building and the maintenance does cost us every year. I know they did this they did it like a year after Fish got to move into that building. That they gave us an estimate on how much like rent would be if they had to rent the facility. Because we give it to them, because we took them out of, I think it was 3 separate buildings and got them into this building that we own. And then they also did an estimate on the maintenance. And I don't know whether it's got the new roof on it yet, but that was also brought up at one time that it was due for a new roof. So I was curious about how much that's costing us also. Because that is, I think is our free part, is the rent is free to them and we do the maintenance. So that's also contributed to them too. And then they do electricity and other items like that. But that is part of our contribution to them on top of all these other times that we contribute to them also. So they're getting obviously more than most people are getting, but they do very well too. So that's just my question. I was just wanting to know what it is today or this year. I know the finance group usually puts that together. So I'll probably be asking this question again later on if nobody ever gets back to me and lets me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jewell. And I'm not immediately familiar with all of the details of the lease agreement with Six Garden Center and Fish, but we can get that for you. Anyone else? All right, we'll go to council questions next. Any questions from council? Councilmember Marsh Holston.
Thank you, Mayor. Last year, we ended up having a second award based on additional revenues that came in. Do we anticipate that happening again this year, or is this it for the year?
That was kind of a one-off year. We don't anticipate that happening again.
Okay, and then the 1.799 that we are allocating, is that the entirety of the 2.25 mil?
Yeah, correct. And then 100,000 from BCF. I'm sorry, that's the 1.0 of the 2.25 mil.
And then just a question for general staff. That 2.25 mil, is that something that the voters set, or is that something that council at some point set as a portion of the mill to be set aside for that?
Councilmember Marshall, and I will research that for you and get that final answer back, but it was, I believe, a policy decision, not a voter decision.
Thank you.
That's correct. It didn't go before a vote or ballot.
That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Chaff.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had a question regarding A&I Avenues. I read in the memo, this is a new organization and it is also a tier 3 organization. So I was a little surprised at that we were funding a tier, a new organization at a tier 3 status. But then I read that it was a merger of an organization that we used to fund, Imagine. So I was at ease a little bit more. But through your presentation, I got a little confused. So I just wanted to clarify this. Could you tell us a little bit more about this new organization and how they're going to be serving Broomfield? Were these services that A&I are going to provide, were they provided by Imagine in previous years? And just clarify the Community Services Board, the Case Management Agency, that whole piece of what they are going to provide.
Sure. Thank you for your question. So in July of last year, state legislation required that case management redesign occur. So I'll try to keep it simple. Community center boards used to be the one single entity that split into program approved service agencies and case management agencies. The case management agency, that's the merged agency. So yes, A&I Avenues is a new merged agency, but it's from Imagine and ACMI joining together. So Imagine it moves the CCB, the Community Center Board Services, to A&I Avenues as a merged agency. The PASA still remains with the Program Approved Service Agency, still remains with Imagine. So that's why there's that split you can see with CCB becoming CMA and PASA continuing. Does that help? with your question?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
So, and you had mentioned that Imagine is still going to be providing services. That Imagine is going to be providing tier 2 services for Broomfield. So with that total package between what Imagine will be providing as well as A&I services, are those same services that we have gotten in years past?
Yes.
Is it going to be more because it's now 2 different organizations?
It will be similar services. Imagine was doing both those capacities, but now A&I Avenues will take over one portion of those capacities, and Imagine will continue doing the PASA portion of them, but the services will remain essentially the same, just with those 2 different entities now.
Okay, and then my last question would be, and I didn't pull this up until, I didn't even get the chance to pull this up because it came up in the presentation, but our funding level between now these 2 different organizations, is this similar to how we've been funding Imagine in years past?
We calculate kind of historical trends and look at that, and this is kind of on track with those trends. And we compare PASA and CMA now, but PASA and CCB formerly.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from council? All right, first is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2025-29. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2025-29, approving an agreement with A&I Avenues for nonprofit grant funding.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Oh, look over there. Action, Councilmember Wynn.
I make this motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Delgadillo.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make one quick mention. I really do appreciate the breakdown of these organizations and tiers. I think that was something that really helped me understand kind of how we are divvying up these funds. The rationale that goes towards these breakdowns of nonprofits into these tiers made a lot of sense to me. So I appreciate that within the presentation as well. And I also wanted to give a shout out to our community foundation for your partnership. I believe that this provides, the city and county of Broomfield efficiency and communication as it helps to acknowledge the wealth of nonprofits that are in our community, getting these grant dollars out there, as well as providing our community with services. So thank you for your partnership in this. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Then council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel, please state, oh, never mind. Is she voting on this one? No. Okay, so all council members have entered their vote.
I'm sorry, my understanding, and Councilmember Hinkle can help me correct, she is voting on the first 2 resolutions. She is recusing from the 3rd resolution on the Broomfield Community Foundation.
Okay, the 4th one. Okay. Then Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote, and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes unanimously. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2025-30. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2025-30, approving an agreement with Broomfield Fish for nonprofit grant funding.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Marshallson.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Wynn.
I second this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. And all council members have entered their vote. The results will be displayed on the screen, and that passes unanimously. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2025-31. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2025-31, approving an agreement with Clinica Family Health and Wellness for nonprofit grant funding.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Wynn.
I make this motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Delgadillo.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote, and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes unanimously. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2025-32. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
Resolution number 2025-32, approving the Fourth Amendment to an agreement with Broomfield Community Foundation for grant administration services.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Shaft.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Marshall Olson.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
And Councilmember Henkel has recused herself. So all council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That also passes unanimously with one recusal. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night. Thanks for the late night. And now our city and county clerk. I feel so bad it's so late. This is a long night for y'all. It's our first meeting back after a month. And it's jam-packed. Our final item on the agenda this evening is council's consideration on first reading of proposed ordinance number 2254 relating to amending the effective date for ranked choice voting for city council and mayoral elections. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and City and County Clerk Crystal Clemens.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. This evening, we are presenting ordinance number 2254, amending the effective date for ranked choice voting. Next slide, please. At the November 2nd, 2021 coordinated election, Broomfield electors approved a ballot question 2A, amending the Broomfield Municipal Code to require elections for city council members and the mayor be conducted using a ranked voting method beginning at the November 7th, 2023 election. Ballot question 2A passed by 882 votes with 12,069 voting yes and 11,187 voting no. The November 7th, 2023 election did not require a ranked voting method because the number of candidates that filed for each office was not enough to require a ranked voting race. The Colorado Secretary of State was required to establish rules for auditing ranked voting elections by January 1st, 2025, but Senate Bill 24210 extended the Secretary of State's deadline to January 1st, 2026. Next slide, please. So the election rules are important because they establish measures to ensure election compliance. A risk limiting audit is a post-election audit that gives a statistical level of confidence that the outcome of the election is correct. While the rules define the risk limiting audit process for plurality voting, the rules do not define the process for ranked voting. The delay of the deadline to establish rules for auditing ranked voting elections places the responsibility of developing the risk limiting audit as required of all counties on Broomfield for ranked voting races. Proceeding with ranked voting implementation before the Colorado Secretary of State establishes formal rules could lead to a situation where Broomfield invests time and resources into developing processes that may ultimately need to be adjusted or even discarded once the official state rules are in place. This could create inefficiencies and unnecessary cost, especially if the consultant's recommendations are based on interim practices that do not align with the final state rules. Next slide, please. So in the 2025 budget, we estimated the cost to implement ranked choice voting at $170,000. These costs are based on costs incurred by the city of Boulder and the county of Boulder. These costs included the hiring of a consultant for the development of an audit process. If ordinance number 2254 is not passed, we will begin the process of contracting with a consultant as well as developing community communication and education plans immediately. Although we will not know until the filing deadline at the end of August if enough candidates will file to require a ranked voting race as seen in 2023. If ordinance number 2254 is passed, The funds will not be expended and will remain part of the general fund. Staff has met with the Republican and Democrat Party chairs regarding the delay of the implementation of ranked choice voting. Both party chairs agree with the delayed implementation and expressed no concerns with the delay. Staff recommends council amend the effective date for the implementation of ranked voting elections until the Secretary of State's office has established audit rules beginning with the November 2nd, 2027 coordinated election. The public hearing, if passed tonight on first reading and second reading of this ordinance, will be at the February 11th council meeting. This concludes my presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Clemens. We'll now proceed with public comments, starting with in person, if anyone would like to be heard on this. Seeing none, any questions from council? All right, then. Oh, I'm sorry, was there a hand up? Oh, Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. No worries. Just one question. Has any other communities that with ranked choice voting initiate this process of pushing it back the deadline?
Not that I'm aware of.
No worries. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Any others? Didn't mean to rush through that. Okay. Then next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2254. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
Ordinance number 2254, amending the effective date for ranked choice voting for city council and mayoral elections.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on first reading and order published in full? Okay, thank you. Councilmember Delgadillo.
Once again, I forgot I'm the only person awake. I will move. So moved.
Can I have a second? Thank you, Councilmember Lim.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Shav.
Thank you, Mayor. So I was definitely awake. I just, this is one I couldn't make the motion for. If the high point of the meeting, as Councilmember Cohen said, was the sister cities, this might, for me, might as well be the lowest point. This was a voter approved ballot question that would require the city council and the mayor elections to utilize ranked choice voting. This was a large conversation and many years of community building around this issue. However, in this last state legislative session within a large elections bill, there were about 2 sentences which eliminated the requirement for the Secretary of State to formalize rules for multi-county elections, which eliminated our ability to have those audit rules done by the state. Without these rules, Broomfield would need to implement a process to establish those audit rules and the cost of nearly $200,000. And I just can't in good conscience push for the expenditure of these funds, given the challenges that we've had in the past year. I do hope that the state follows through with implementing those rules coming up in this next year. So my hope is that those will be done. My hope is that we will be able to utilize ranked choice voting in the near future. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll move forward to the vote on ordinance number 2254. Council, please cast your vote electronically. And Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel, please state your vote verbally.
Yeah.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Clemens. And again, appreciate you staying late. There are no requests for future action this evening. Is there any other business to come before the council from my colleagues or staff? All right, there being no further business, the business meeting and borough meeting are adjourned. Council will convene for executive session immediately following this meeting. Thank you all. Have a good night.